Hey detectives, welcome back. We've got another mysterious case to explore. The case of Kara Nichols. Kara Nichols, born on May 20, 1993, was the middle child in her family. She grew up with her brother Terrence and younger sister, living in a very united and loving family. Sociable and friendly, Kara thrived in school and had a strong passion for art, particularly painting. Her talent has won her many awards in art competitions. At the same time, she is also considered to have a promising future. She is also very empathetic, often understanding and feeling other people's pain as her own. During her teenage years, Kara's behavior changed a lot. She became introverted, and her academic performance dropped. At the age of 13, she was arrested for shoplifting and sentenced to community service. Her parents, Julia and Paul, were confused by this sudden change in their daughter. She never lacked for anything, so her stealing may have been her way of rebelling against established norms. At 16, Kara's mental health deteriorated after the death of her beloved dog, plunging her into a deep depression. Her parents arranged for her to see a psychologist, but the sessions were ineffective, and her condition worsened. Eventually, she was admitted to a psychiatric hospital, where she was diagnosed with a personality disorder. After a short period of treatment, her condition improved with prescribed medication. However, due to the many side effects of the medication, she decided to stop taking it and turn to illegal substances, believing they would be a better alternative to antipsychotics. Before graduating, she had to transfer schools several times because of behavioral problems. After graduating from high school, Kara worked as a waitress, while also pursuing her childhood dream of becoming a model. With her attractive appearance, she believes that she will succeed in this field. She has been working hard to find modeling agencies and increase her body of work. During this time, her health improved greatly, and she was no longer addicted. However, over time, she came to understand that success in modeling required more than just beauty. It also depended on luck and connections. In the summer of 2012, Kara's family relocated to Chicago, Illinois. Unfortunately, the move was difficult for she, and her depression returned. Stress caused her to turn to drugs again, despite her parents' best efforts to support her and take her to a rehab facility. In the end, she was kicked out of there for not following the rules. Her parents were worried, not only because of her behavior, but also because of how she was funding her addiction. Her salary as a waitress was not enough to cover these expenses. Kara's parents felt disheartened. Her mental state changed from day to day. After some brief conversations, she decided to move back to her hometown, believing that being in familiar surroundings and reconnecting with old friends would help her recover. Although her family disliked the idea, they couldn't persuade her to stay. Eventually, she returned to Colorado Springs, and her brother Terrence promised to help her. The care and affection the two siblings showed each other comforted their parents. However, Kara valued her liberty and chose not to live with Terrence, visiting him only occasionally. Instead, she decided to rent an apartment with 3 male friends, which shocked her parents when they found out. They insisted she move out, but she refused, explaining that she had no better options and felt the men were no danger. Gradually, life returned to normal for Kara. She resumed her previous job and continued her modeling career by creating a profile on Model Mayhem. Over time, she received more modeling offers, but they didn't produce the results she had hoped for. Standing out among thousands of profiles proved is big challenge. Eventually, Kara encountered financial difficulties. She fell behind on her rent and had to eat food from his roommate. She confided in her brother, Terrence, who provided her with financial support. She was determined to seize the opportunity she received on October 9. However, no one expected that night to be her last. At the time of her disappearance, Kara was 19 years old. She was last seen wearing a hooded sweatshirt, dark jeans, white DC sneakers, and pink headphones. Kara is a girl with outstanding height, with green eyes, and has 2 tattoos, a marijuana leaf on her right ankle, and an astronaut on her left wrist. She also had multiple piercings on her ears and above her lip. Flyers distributed in the area described these features, along with other details about her appearance. It was also noted that she struggled with bipolar disorder or borderline personality disorder. Her older brother, Terrence, was the first to suspect that something was wrong. Soon after, her parents, Julia and Paul Nichols, joined the search for their daughter. Although Kara used banned substances, but her family knew she always stayed in touch and kept them updated about her whereabouts. When she failed to call back on October 10 and 11, her family became increasingly concerned. They always cared for her, but she wanted to live freely and did not want to follow any constraints. Lately, she has become more withdrawn and only talks to her brother Terrence. Kara's modeling job did not bring in the expected income, so when she was offered a well-paying lingerie photo shoot, she eagerly accepted. She told her roommates about her plans and left late at night. The shoot was scheduled for early morning in Denver, so it was more convenient to leave the night before. She wasn't traveling alone, she was accompanied by colleagues from the industry. Since neither she nor her friends had a driver's license or a car, they managed to find someone to drive them. At first, Kara's story didn't raise any suspicions. People who know her often see her modeling profile and social networks filled with professional photos. Everything seemed normal until she failed to return the next day or the day after. The last time her brother, Terrence, spoke to her was at 11:45 p.m. on October 9. Their conversation was suddenly interrupted, and she did not call back. Terrence thought the phone was disconnected and went to sleep, not knowing that he would never hear his sister's voice again. As of October 10, Kara did not respond to any calls or messages. Her voicemail was consistently active. Terrence assumed she was either busy or resting after work. However, by October 11, there was still no word from her. This strange silence made him extremely worried, because it was not like Kara was always out of contact. Worried, Terrence decided to visit Kara's home and spoke with her neighbors. None of them had seen she in several days. One young man mentioned seeing her get into a dark-colored sedan around 11:00 p.m. Unfortunately, he couldn't identify the driver due to the darkness, but noted that she didn't seem to be alone. Terrence then went into Kara's room to look for clues. He noticed that her essential belongings, such as her cosmetics bag, purse, charger, and laptop, were still there. On the bedside table, he even found $300 in cash. It was clear she hadn't planned to leave for an extended period. When he opened her laptop, he discovered that she hadn't been online for more than 2 days. This was unusual, as she was often checking her email for modeling opportunities. Convinced that something was wrong, he reported her disappearance to the police. At the police station, Terrence explained everything in detail, but the police were in no hurry to begin the search. They argued that Kara was an adult and didn't have to inform anyone of her whereabouts. They suggested she might have been held up at a photo shoot, gone somewhere else, or possibly had a boyfriend no one knew about and was spending time with him. However, the police's explanation still did not reassure Terrence. He knew his sister well. No matter what happens, she will definitely contact him. He was certain something bad had happened to her. However, the police calmed him down and asked him to come back later. Terrence then contacted their parents. He explained the situation and asked for their help. He understood that in a situation as serious as this, there needs to be joint cooperation. Upon learning of their daughter's disappearance, the family quickly flew to Colorado Springs. When they received the news that their daughter was missing, Kara's family quickly flew to Colorado Springs. Her cell phone was still off, and she had missed an important appointment, which made them even more worried. They then went to the police station to ask the police to carefully review the report they had filed. The El Paso County Sheriff's Office eventually recognized that the circumstances surrounding her disappearance were concerning. Detectives contacted locals to find out information about Kara's whereabouts. Kara's parents permitted investigators to access her cell phone data. Experts confirmed that her last message was sent to her brother, Terrence. Data from her cellular provider indicated that on October 9th, her phone was traveling north before it was turned off. Friends and acquaintances joined the search, distributing flyers across Colorado Springs and Denver. Investigators also looked into other communication methods used by Kara, particularly her laptop. This leads to the discovery of a secret she has kept from her family. Some of her modeling jobs are actually a cover for a call girl service she has been involved in since she was 17. This shocked her parents, Paul and Julia, when they learned the truth about her income. Unfortunately, they needed to agree to release this information to generate new leads, but doing so could negatively impact the investigation and reduce public interest. There were many cases where the victim's image was significantly distorted, and Kara's family did not want to share their hardships. However, they felt they had no choice but to hope to find she. Unfortunately, no miracle happened. After the new information was released, media outlets began canceling interviews with her family, leading to a decrease in coverage of her disappearance. The search for Kara was suspended. The National Women's Coalition Against Violence and Exploitation was the only organization involved in assisting with the investigation into Kara's disappearance. They helped keep her case front of mind for the public and the authorities. In November 2012, detectives announced that they would interview 2 women who were believed to have been in the car with Kara on the night she disappeared. Descriptions of these women suggested they might have worked in the same field as Kara. While they were important witnesses, they were not considered suspects, as they were likely the last people to see her alive. A composite sketch of one of the women was released to the public, but no one came forward with information. This made people doubt the existence of these women, and the investigation was stalled again. That month, Kara's photos appeared on a call girl service website in Las Vegas. However, detectives confirmed that she had not posted them herself. Someone had exploited her fame for personal gain, and the profile was eventually taken down. Although some people interested in the case contacted the police station, after investigation, these reports were confirmed to be false. In the spring of 2013, a businessman from Colorado Springs claimed to have seen Kara between late October and December 2012 with a tall, disheveled man. She looked frightened, suggesting she was being held against her will. One day, this man pushed her, and a bystander intervened, threatening him, and asked him to leave her alone. The witness's account was verified. Although police found the man described, but he said the woman with him was actually his ex-girlfriend. In the summer of 2013, a criminal law student took it upon himself to investigate Kara's case. He traveled to Denver, spoke with many homeless individuals and substance users. Several people reported meeting Kara at a nonprofit that provides syringes and needles to drug users. However, this lead turned out to be false, as did all the other testimonies he received. Many people have lost faith in Kara being found alive, because she has been missing for longer than the usual disappearances. In the fall of 2013, Kara's parents have offered a reward to anyone who provides information about their daughter's whereabouts, to no avail. They ruled out a ransom kidnapping as no demands were received. However, the following year, a new development occurred, providing a major breakthrough and reigniting the investigation. In May 2014, Deputy Sheriff Cliff Porter admitted that he had mishandled the investigation into Kara's disappearance. He admitted that he had not focused enough on her case and had overlooked important evidence from the beginning. This admission shocked her family, who felt that their daughter's case had been neglected because of her profession. The mishandling of cell phone records has raised concerns about the conduct of the investigating agency. The administration has been criticized for inaction. Multiple audits have led to disciplinary action against the department, and several individuals have been fired. In May 2016, former Sheriff Terry Makita and some of his staff were charged with corruption, fabricating witness statements, kidnapping, and extortion. This led Kara's family to believe that her case had not been properly handled. However, this situation has led to the opening of a new investigation, especially when new detectives are involved. On February 1, 2022, Christina Hollendorfer went to the police station. Before that, detectives had tried to talk to her several times, but she refused to cooperate. It turned out that since 2014, she had not wanted to testify against her ex-husband, Joel. However, after many years, she decided to speak up and accuse him of killing Kara Nichols. An analysis of Kara's calls and messages showed that she received 8 calls between 9:58 and 11:08 p.m. on October 9, most of which were from Joel. Detectives had questioned him several times, but they only received general information. He admitted that he had hired a call girl and had planned to meet her between the evening of October 9th and the morning of October 10, but the meeting never happened as the escort did not arrive. Joel's statement raised suspicions, especially since data from Kara's phone indicated that she was near his parents' house on the night she disappeared. On October 15, 2014, detectives searched Joel's home and his family's property. During the search, they spoke with Joel and his mother, Betty. They seemed calm and friendly, and it did not appear that they were hiding anything. They willingly showed the detectives around the property, including several fresh burial sites for deceased animals. Joel's family has owned the farm since 1985, which includes a large livestock yard. Dogs trained to detect human remains searched the area and reacted near some livestock graves. However, further investigation of these graves found no evidence of human remains. It's possible the dogs mistook the scent of dead animals for that of a human. To rule Joel out as a suspect, samples from several suspicious areas were collected and analyzed. Unfortunately, the results indicated that the samples were not connected to the case. Despite this, suspicions about Joel remained. As it turns out, Joel has a history of serious harassment and has violated his probation multiple times. He was a hardened criminal who consistently broke the terms of his parole and used banned substances. This led to the breakup of his family. Investigators approached his ex-wife, Christina, multiple times. During these discussions, they revealed that she and he were raising 2 children together. Initially, she was hesitant to share details about their life and eventually stopped communicating altogether. As a result, Joel remained the sole suspect in Kara's disappearance, along with other theories. After 8 years, new information about Joel has come to light. Christina claimed that in November 2014, he had confessed to her that he had accidentally killed a call girl and buried her body in an old horse grave. She learned of this confession after his father's death. Following the funeral, he revealed that he felt guilty about his father's passing. According to Christina, he confessed to his parents what he had done. After hearing this, his father, who was old, fell into a severe depression. This condition severely weakened his father's health and eventually led to his death. During that time, his family covered for him. This behavior explained the hospitality and cooperation shown by Betty and Joel during the search of the farm, as they sought to avoid raising further suspicion. On February 3, 2022, authorities conducted another search at Joel's home. They thoroughly excavated the farm and discovered human remains buried in a 2-meter deep pit. 4 days later, he was arrested. Subsequent analysis confirmed that the remains belonged to Kara, who had been missing. Although only bones were found, modern technology allowed for her identification. During questioning, Joel initially remained composed, but eventually confessed that he had not intended to kill Kara. He said he met her through a call girl website. On October 9th, he called her and arranged to meet, then picked her up from her home. They had some intimate moments in his old car, and everything was going smoothly until he suddenly strangled her. When he realized she had lost consciousness, he stopped. He attempted to perform first aid, but it was too late. She was already dead. Panicked, He drove her to his family farm and buried her in the first grave he found. Over time, he moved her body several times and ultimately buried her where his mother's favorite horse was laid to rest. This explains why service dogs get confused about scents. Additionally, this specific area had not been searched during the initial investigation. Joel Hollendorfer was soon charged with first-degree murder and tampering with evidence. Meanwhile, his mother, Betty, claimed she had no knowledge of her son's crime, insisting that she had always cooperated with the investigation and truly believed in his innocence. The hearings occurred in the summer of 2023. The prosecution argued that Joel deliberately committed the crime to fulfill his dark fantasies. Meanwhile, forensic experts were unable to provide a clear explanation for Kara's death. However, they determined that asphyxiation was the cause, based on the fact that her hyoid bone was broken. Experts stated that it is impossible to accidentally strangle someone to death, as there is always time to reconsider and stop. Another important factor was Kara's condition related to drug use. The defense claimed that her death resulted from asphyxiation. They argued that a healthy person would have a much better chance of recovery in similar circumstances than someone dependent on substances. The trial described Kara as a severe addict, suggesting she had little chance of survival due to the long-term effects of the drugs on her body. Unfortunately, the defense's claims cannot be verified or denied at this time. Kara's family was deeply distressed by the way their daughter was depicted. Her father said this description made the jury lose sympathy and view her as a victim who did not deserve mercy. Throughout the trial, Joel did not show remorse, and some witnesses noted that he even smiled at times. In the end, Joel's charges were downgraded to second-degree murder. He was convicted of manslaughter and sentenced to 24 years in prison. This sentence did not satisfy Kara's family, who had hoped for a life sentence for Joel. Additionally, due to a lack of evidence, no other individuals were held accountable. Kara's parents said the verdict was a serious failure of the justice system. Welcome back, mystery lovers. Today's case is going to keep you on the edge of your seat. The case of Diogo Goncalves. Diogo Goncalves, born in 1999 in the city of Albura, Portugal, is an only child in a poor but hardworking family. His family made a living mainly from the unstable tourism industry. His parents always considered Diogo a good son. Those who knew him described Diogo as kind, responsible, hardworking, reliable, and very friendly. He enjoyed making friends and was close to his family. Diogo attended high school in his hometown. After graduating, he began studying computer science. To pay for his studies and living expenses, Diogo applied for a job at McDonald's in 2015, at the age of 16. When he was 17, his life suddenly took a major turn when his father suffered a stroke and fell into a vegetative state. That same year, while Diogo and his mother were trying to cope with his father's difficult situation, another tragedy occurred. Diogo's mother, who had always supported him in his studies and upbringing, was involved in a traffic accident. While she was on her way to work at the shopping mall where she worked as a cleaner, a car hit her, dragging her for several meters and causing her to die from her injuries. Although the driver fled, the police identified him and brought him to court. While Diogo awaited the verdict on the perpetrator of his mother's death, he had to move to a medical facility to receive the necessary care. His aunt, concerned about Diogo's situation, invited him to live with her, but the two had a serious disagreement. After a few weeks, they could no longer live together. Diogo told a friend about his situation, and the friend's parents offered him a room in their house in the Albufeira neighborhood. Here, Diogo was close to friends and people who helped him feel at home. Despite his young age, Diogo has shown an excellent ability to handle and overcome difficulties with patience and optimism. In 2017, at the age of 18, Diogo graduated with a degree in computer technology and completed a 6-month internship at Villa Vita Park, a top 5-star hotel. Diogo's abilities impressed the directors, and they offered him a job at the hotel as a technician. In 2018, Diogo decided to accept the offer and left the fast food chain where he had worked for almost a year as a shift manager. He entered a new phase of his life, envisioning a future filled with opportunities that would help him rise above the hardships he had experienced. After working at the company for a while and contemplating brighter days, he decided to buy a car. Diogo got along well with his colleagues, especially a girl he had a crush on, Maria Malvero, a 19-year-old hotel security guard. Maria Malvero was born into a normal family and, like Diogo, has gone through many hardships. Her mother suffered from mental illness, and her father left when she was very young, leaving her never to see him again. Maria, who works in security, became interested in martial arts and started practicing karate. She dreamed of becoming a police officer but was rejected by the academy because of her tattoos. This frustrated her, and she decided to join the Seer Info training course, which specializes in training security guards for the private security sector. Diogo has feelings for Maria and has expressed them openly to her from the beginning, but she does not reciprocate and maintains a cold attitude. Diogo is very fond of Maria, so much so that he turns down an attractive job at the Sheraton hotel chain in Lisbon just because he does not want to be away from her. He often brings her meals while she is on duty. Over time, Diogo and Maria became close, and people around them saw them as a couple, although there was no romantic relationship between them. Maria told Diogo that she did not want a relationship with him because she had just gotten out of a toxic relationship with a naval officer. However, she kept in touch with Diogo, causing him to harbor hopes of a future with her. Diogo did not give up hope and always tried to be close to her and please her. One day, Diogo was devastated when he accidentally saw a video on social media of Maria kissing another girl. Diogo was upset because he thought she should have told him that she didn't like boys, which was why they would never be together. Diogo's best friend, Fabio, tried to reassure him by saying that girls sometimes do that, but Diogo didn't believe him and insisted that Maria had lied to him, which was why she refused to be with him. Despite his disappointment, Diogo and Maria remained friends, and Maria continued to accept his gifts and invitations to dates. Diogo tried to take her home several times, but she always told him that her roommate had a jealous boyfriend and she didn't want to let another man into her apartment. Time passed, and in December 2019, Diogo was informed that he would finally receive compensation for his mother's death, which had occurred 3 years earlier. After receiving the sum of €70,000, the young man decided it was time to buy a house so that he would no longer have to pay rent. Diogo shared the news of his mother's insurance money with Maria. A few weeks later, Maria decided to quit her job at the hotel. She said that she could no longer bear the comments of her colleagues about her alleged relationship with Diogo. Maria also justified it by saying that she wanted to spend more time with her mother, who needed more attention because of her mental illness. At that time, Diogo had no reason to doubt Maria's words. However, later events showed that her decision to quit her job at the hotel was for darker reasons, and that is when the third character in the story, Mariana, 20, appears. She works as a nurse at the hospital and has a stable relationship with Maria. Maria and Mariana live together at Mariana's parents' house, as they are not yet financially stable enough to have their own house where they can enjoy their relationship. This is exactly Maria's plan when she learns about the large amount of money that Diogo will receive. From that moment on, Maria begins to get closer to Diogo. It turns out that Maria has shared information with Mariana, and together they decide to trick Diogo into gaining access to his bank account data and steal the money he received. The problem arises when one day, after being rejected by Maria several times, Maria suddenly tells Diogo that she wants to spend a romantic evening with him. This was truly a gift for Diogo. He couldn't believe his ears. After waiting so long, the thought of being with the girl he loved made him extremely happy. The meeting was set for Friday evening, March 20th, 2020. Diogo was delighted and had no idea why the girl suddenly changed her mind. As soon as Diogo entered, Mariana gave him the orange juice she had brought herself, but the drink contained an unexpected ingredient: 3 ampoules of diazepam, a central nervous system drug with anti-anxiety and sedative effects. Mariana was the one who suggested using this substance, having stolen the drug from the hospital where she worked. Mariana's plan was to anesthetize Diogo, access his bank information, and possibly manipulate his fingers to bypass the phone lock. Mariana is said to have waited in a car outside the house while her friend carried out the plan. She even texted Maria several times to see if the drug was working, as it took longer than she had anticipated. The situation inside the house became increasingly tense. Diogo did not understand what was happening and began to get anxious. Maria then tried to calm him down by promising to dance erotically, but first, she had to tie him to a table. After being in that position for a few minutes, Diogo panicked and asked Maria to let him go, but she became aggressive and began to beat Diogo. Using her martial arts skills, Maria overpowered Diogo, knocked him to the floor, and wrapped her arms around his neck, preventing him from breathing. According to Mariana, Maria then told her to go inside the apartment, and when she entered, she found Diogo lying on the floor. Mariana asked Maria what happened and criticized her for going off plan. The original plan was just to steal the key and take his money. When Diogo was unresponsive, Mariana performed CPR. However, when he regained consciousness, he became very agitated and tried to attack Mariana. In response to Diogo's reaction, Maria overpowered him by grabbing him from behind, throwing him to the floor, and strangling him again. Diogo lost his life at the hands of the girl he loved. His body was found in Maria and Mariana's living room, and soon after, they began their evil plan. They cut off his thumb and index finger to unlock his phone, log into the mobile payment app, and transfer money. This process lasted for several days due to the daily transaction limit at that time. Since Diogo was scheduled to go to work the next day, Maria and Mariana devised a plan to prevent Diogo's coworkers from discovering his absence. Maria and Mariana impersonated Diogo to text one of his coworkers. The colleague received a message from Diogo's number, saying that he would not be able to come to work and needed a replacement. However, this message seemed like an unannounced absence, which was unlike Diogo, who did not like to change shifts, so the message felt strange to the colleague. The colleague then asked Diogo if there was a problem and was told that everything was fine. The conversation with the hotel staff and people close to Diogo continued throughout Friday and part of Saturday, but these messages were increasingly uncharacteristic of him. On Saturday morning, Diogo's boss received a text message saying that he would not be returning to work because he had met a French woman and was moving in with her. This story seemed very strange to the boss because Diogo was a responsible person and would never quit his job so suddenly. In search of answers, the boss started calling Diogo, but he did not answer. He then received another message saying that he was not well enough to talk on the phone. Diogo's boss replied that he could only calm down if they could talk. He wanted to hear his voice and his explanation for what was happening. The reactions of Diogo's relatives to the messages Maria and Mariana sent convinced the girls to change their plans to explain their boyfriend's sudden disappearance. They decided to make it seem as if Diogo had decided to end his life and planned to dismember his body to get rid of the evidence. Maria later claimed that they were inspired by the TV show Dexter, about a forensic scientist who kills criminals and evades justice by removing traces of his crimes by dismembering his victims. After carrying out their evil plot, They stuffed Diogo's body into a trash bag and put it in the trunk of their car. They went to an ATM and shopped at a mall, where their hugs and laughter were captured on security cameras. They then went to a resident's house to begin dismembering the victim. Finally, Maria and Mariana placed Diogo's body in a black bag and put the rest of the body in a container. Meanwhile, at Mariana's parents' house, Diogo's friends launched a campaign to report him missing and contacted the authorities. They had to wait the required 48 hours to officially declare him missing. Maria and Mariana then left the house. Maria drove Diogo's car to the cliffs near the San Vicente Lighthouse in Cabo. Mariana followed Maria in her car. At around 2 p.m. that same day, Mariana threw Diogo's body off the cliff. She then left Diogo's car nearby. They thought that this way they could make it look like Diogo had committed suicide. Maria had no idea that instead of falling into the sea, the body would get stuck on a rock. They then left together in Mariana's car. They drove about 7 kilometers in 12 minutes to the Inferno Dago waterfall in the town of Tavira, where they threw Diogo's remains into the water. Shortly thereafter, Diogo's car was discovered in a parking lot near the Cabo de São Vicente lighthouse. According to multiple sources, 2 laptops were found in the car. Police were called to the scene and conducted a search on both land and sea. As a result, the body of a young man was discovered, partially covered by a black trash bag. At the same time, at another location on the coast, a French couple was stunned to discover Diogo's head. Diogo's hands and feet were also found after a thorough police search. Investigators said the circumstances of Diogo's death were strange. He was brutally murdered despite being a quiet person who did not associate with people of questionable reputation. Investigators could not find any hostile forces against Diogo. The police continued to investigate and soon discovered that Diogo had received a large inheritance after the death of his mother. Through the wire transfer investigation, they discovered that a large sum of money had been transferred from Diogo's account to Maria. Detectives tracked down Maria to find out why Diogo's money had ended up in her hands. Maria tried to convince the police that she had killed Diogo because he had abused her. Maria claimed that was the reason she had left the hotel before the incident. However, when police examined text messages between the victim and Maria, they found this was not true. Maria said that she and Diogo had become close after she left her job. During her first meeting with the police, Maria claimed that she was the only person responsible for planning and carrying out the shooting. Maria insisted that Mariana had nothing to do with the crime. However, Mariana's testimony contradicted Maria's. Mariana explained that Maria said she wanted to rob Diogo of his money and intended to kill him. Mariana said Maria wanted to make him suffer so that he would give her his bank account password. The evidence gathered by investigators was enough to convict Maria and Mariana. Detectives had Diogo's phone records, cell phone records, and ATM surveillance video. Maria and Mariana were arrested on April 1, 2020, and appeared in court in June of that year. The judge followed Maria's account of the events, and Maria pleaded guilty while repeatedly denying Mariana's involvement in the case. She said Diogo's body had been in a suitcase in a car parked in the garage for 2 days, and that's where the remains were dismembered. The judge then asked Mariana where she was when Diogo's body was dismembered. It was notable that the joints of the body were separated with great precision. All eyes in the courtroom were on Mariana, who was also a longtime nurse. Mariana answered all the questions and said that everyone knew she worked at the hospital, so they suspected that she was the one who dismembered the body. She further explained that using the internet, the matter could be cleared up. The judge ordered Maria and Mariana to be detained because this was a serious crime under the law. The crime was committed in a cold, calculated, reckless, and extremely cruel manner. A few months later, the trial took place on February 24, 2021. In her testimony at the trial on February 26, 2021, Maria stated that she initially sought revenge on Diogo for his violent behavior but did not intend to kill him. She admitted that her goal was to humiliate him. Maria also confirmed that her friend had no connection with Diogo and did not know about the murder. Maria argued that her actions were not motivated by Diogo's money. In addition, Maria and Mariana attended the trial together but avoided looking at each other. It was rumored that after their arrest and imprisonment, they ended their relationship. On April 27, 2021, the court delivered its verdict. Maria was found guilty of aggravated murder, complicity in indignity to a corpse, robbery, unlawful access, fraud, carjacking, and illegal possession of a weapon. She was sentenced to 25 years in prison and ordered to pay €265,000 in compensation to Diogo's father. Mariana was acquitted of murder but convicted of desecration of a corpse, complicity, and fraud. She was sentenced to 4 years in prison for these charges. However, she was released because the charges she was convicted of did not require pre-trial detention until the final verdict was delivered. The court determined that Mariana's attempt to revive Diogo showed that she had no intention of killing him. The judge took into account Mariana's confession, in which she accepted full responsibility for her actions. Despite this, the Portuguese public disagreed with the verdict, considering Mariana as guilty as Maria of the crimes against Diogo. After the verdict, Mariana left the court through the back door, where her father, who had attended all the hearings, was waiting for her. Neither Mariana nor her father would speak to reporters. Hello again, true crime fans. We've got another mysterious case to explore. The case of Jennifer Dullos. Jennifer Dullos was born in 1968 in New York. Her father is Hillard Farber, a banker, and her mother is Gloria Tenenberg, a philanthropist. Jennifer has an older sister, Melissa Irene Farber. Jennifer graduated from Brown University in 1990 and later earned a master's degree in creative writing from New York University's Tisch School of the Arts. Jennifer is married to Fotis and they have 5 children together, all named after Greek Orthodox saints, 3 sons, Petros, Theodore, and Constantine, and 2 daughters, Christiane and Cleopatra. Jennifer and Fotis were married for 13 years before ending their marriage in 2017. After that, Jennifer began to feel afraid of her ex-husband. Which makes us wonder, who is Fotis and what changed him? Fotis Dullos was born on August 6, 1967, in Turkey. He grew up in Athens, Greece, and moved to the United States in 1986. He attended Brown University, graduating in 1989. Fotis then went on to earn a master's degree in finance from Columbia Business School. Fotis met his first wife, Hilary Vanessa Alama, at Brown University and married her in Athens in 2000. After their divorce in 2004, he moved to Connecticut and married Jennifer a month later, despite having known her since he was married to Hilary. They moved to Farmington and had 5 children. The marriage of Jennifer and Fotis began to crumble in 2012 and completely collapsed in 2017. Jennifer shared her marital struggles in a blog post in March 2012. She expressed her wish to be stronger to face conflicts without fear. In 2017, Jennifer decided to file for divorce. The reason was that Fotis had an affair with Michelle Troconis, a Venezuelan colleague. Jennifer also requested custody of the 5 children, but the court only granted joint custody. Jennifer feared for her safety and that of her children. She accused Fotis of unsafe behavior, bullying, intimidation, and excessive control. She recounted an incident with Fotis on June 3, 2017. When Fotis learned that she had made plans for the children on Saturday morning, he became angry and lost control. Jennifer said Fotis became angry and agitated, causing her to run upstairs to get away from him. However, Fotis chased her upstairs. Despite Jennifer locking and bolting the door, Fotis continued to verbally and physically abuse and threaten her, leaving her feeling trapped and helpless. Jennifer felt unsafe around her husband. When she decided to file for divorce, the situation became even more dangerous. In an interview, Jennifer shared that she was very afraid of Fotis. She realized that her desire for a divorce had deeply angered Fotis, and she feared that he might retaliate by causing her harm. Jennifer revealed that when she filed for divorce in May 2017, Fotis threatened to kidnap and harm their children if she did not accept his divorce terms. Fotis even purchased a gun that year. In 2018, Jennifer filed for emergency custody of the children. During the trial, the court found that Fotis had violated multiple court orders. Finally, Jennifer was awarded primary custody of the children. Fotis was only allowed supervised visits and phone calls were monitored. Jennifer and the children moved to a rented house in New Canaan, 70 miles from Fotis's home. Fotis was devastated by Jennifer's allegations. In an email to her in 2017, he expressed concern for the children's well-being. He realized that the children needed both parents, not just one. Fotis pleaded with Jennifer to reconsider their marriage for the sake of the children. He even suggested that they could live as partners and learn to accept each other. While denying Jennifer's allegations, Fotis counterclaimed that she had turned the children against him. He claimed that Jennifer called him a psychopath and told the children that he did not care about them. Fotis also claimed that Jennifer bragged about dragging out the divorce for 2 years so she could hire the mafia to break his legs. Fotis denied threatening to kidnap his child and explained that he bought the gun to protect his home. However, Fotis's argument not be credible given the events that followed. Jennifer was last seen at around 8:05 a.m. on May 24, 2019, after dropping her child off at school in New Canaan. She had 2 doctor's appointments in New York at 11 a.m. and 1 p.m. When Jennifer failed to show up for these appointments, which she never missed, her friends reported her missing to the police. Lauren Almeida, Jennifer's live-in nanny, also noticed something unusual. When she arrived at Jennifer's apartment at 11:30 a.m., she found the Range Rover in the garage, while Jennifer's Chevrolet Suburban was missing. However, Lauren did not notify the police until 7 p.m. Jennifer's prolonged and unusual absence, along with her failure to notify anyone of her departure, raised serious concerns for her safety. After receiving disturbing reports, the police investigated and searched Jennifer's New Canaan home. The results of the search shocked everyone who cared about Jennifer. They found blood stains in the garage, on the walls, on the doors, and on the outside of the Range Rover. Inside the home, there were scattered blood stains in the kitchen, and most notably, blood from both Jennifer and her husband, Fotis. This discovery raised suspicions that Fotis may have murdered his wife. The police investigation found that Fotis was present at Jennifer's home on the day she went missing. Police found bicycle tracks around the house, indicating that Fotis had arrived there on a bicycle. According to the police theory, Fotis stalked and waited for Jennifer to return from dropping off her children at school. He then brutally murdered her, cleaned up the scene, and destroyed the evidence. A neighbor's security camera recorded a Chevrolet Suburban leaving Jennifer's home at 10:25 a.m. Police believe Fotis was the driver of the vehicle. Police alleged that Fotis hid Jennifer's body along with items used to clean up the crime scene in his vehicle. He then abandoned the vehicle about 3 miles from the town of New Canaan. Based on these suspicious actions, police believe Fotis was the perpetrator of Jennifer's death and a ruthless killer. At around 7:30 p.m. that night, Security cameras recorded Fotis and his girlfriend Michelle taking out the trash. Notably, they used up to 30 different garbage bags along Alfred Avenue in Hartford. When police searched the garbage bags, they found several suspicious items in the trash bags, including toiletries, bloody clothing, and used gloves. Blood on the clothing matched Jennifer, while Fotis' DNA was found on a glove and a garbage bag. These findings confirmed police's initial suspicions that Fotis was involved in Jennifer's disappearance. The case of Fotis murdering his wife was shocking, but what was even more shocking was the involvement of his girlfriend, Michelle Triconis. Michelle, a Venezuelan woman, had many roles in her life: mother, equestrian athlete, and former ESPN reporter in South America. However, no one expected her to become an accomplice in a murder. Michelle began a relationship with Fotis while he was still married to Jennifer, contributing to the breakdown of their marriage. After Jennifer went missing, the police questioned Michelle. When asked about her whereabouts on the day Jennifer disappeared, Michelle said she had lunch with Fotis and then went with him to one of Fotis' properties to clean up in preparation for a meeting with a client. However, the police suspected that this cleaning was actually to erase traces related to Jennifer's death. On the morning of May 24, 2019, Fotis stole a Toyota Tacoma truck from an employee and drove it to New Canaan, Connecticut. A school bus camera captured the truck traveling at high speed toward Waveney Park at 7:05 a.m. Jennifer's Chevrolet Suburban was later found in the park. Police found a bicycle tire in the trunk of the truck, supporting the theory that Fotis rode his bicycle approximately 3 miles from Waveney Park to Jennifer's New Canaan home. Police believe Fotis arrived at Jennifer's home before she left. When Jennifer arrived at the garage, Fotis attacked her. He then covered up the evidence. Fotis put Jennifer's body in her Chevrolet Suburban and drove to Waveney Park, where he transferred Jennifer's body to his truck. Despite Fotis' efforts to cover up his tracks, he left behind 2 key pieces of evidence at his new home in Canaan: his DNA on the doorknob and a mixture of his and Jennifer's blood on the kitchen faucet. Police believe Fotis spent hours cleaning the house. This was reinforced by neighbor surveillance footage that showed Jennifer's Chevrolet Suburban leaving the house around 11 p.m. Police were even more convinced of Fotis' guilt when he acted suspiciously 5 days after his wife's disappearance. Fotis drove away again in the truck without permission. This time, his destination confirmed police's suspicions. He drove straight to a local car wash and detail shop. Surveillance video captured a black SUV driven by Michelle following the truck. In the video, Fotis is seen stopping at a car wash, then getting into Michelle's SUV. Police suspect their intent was to remove evidence from the vehicle. However, this attempt failed when Jennifer's DNA was discovered by police on the passenger seat of the truck. Fotis became the prime suspect in Jennifer's disappearance due to the substantial evidence against him. On June 7, 2020, Fotis was arrested and charged with murder and kidnapping in connection with Jennifer's case. This was the first time he had been charged with these crimes, although the incident had occurred earlier. Fotis and Michelle were arrested on June 1, 2019, at a hotel in Anson, Connecticut. However, they were only charged with obstructing prosecution and tampering with evidence, not murder. This is because at the time, the police did not have enough evidence to charge them with the murder. While many may think that Fotis should have been arrested earlier on more serious charges, this only happened after the police gathered more evidence. Both Fotis and Michelle pleaded not guilty. Fotis hired attorney Norm Pattis to defend him. Norm was convinced that Jennifer was dead. Initially, Fotis and Michelle were released. However, in September 2019, they were arrested again on charges of tampering with evidence and obstructing justice. In October 2019, Fotis appeared in court to contest the charges against him. The judge said he would carefully review the case, listening to arguments from both the prosecution and the defense. During this time, Jennifer, and Fotis's 5 children lived with their grandmother. The children's grandmother was granted temporary custody by the court. In January 2020, Fotis was arrested and charged with murdering his ex-wife in a Waterloo courtroom. At the same time, his girlfriend, Michelle, was also arrested for attempted murder. After his arrest, Michelle distanced herself from Fotis. In an interview, she admitted that she had made a big mistake in trusting Fotis. Before the incident, Michelle reportedly moved out of Fotis' $5 million home in Farmington with her daughter. Kent Douglas Mawhinney, a former lawyer and friend of Fotis, was also arrested and charged with attempted murder. Police aggressively arrested him. They believe Kent helped Fotis and Michelle create an alibi for the morning of Jennifer's disappearance. During the same period, Kent also faced charges of rape against his wife. He was divorced from his wife, and the situation became even more tense after he was arrested in connection with Jennifer's case. Kent's wife felt her life was in serious danger. Kent's wife reported to the South Windsor Police Department that her husband was plotting to kill her with the help of Fotis. During the investigation, police discovered that Kent was a member of the East Granby Gun Club, a local hunting group. Police were notified that a human grave had been found on land associated with the club. After searching the property, police made a suspicious discovery: a shallow grave on the secluded property. Police found 2 bags of lime and a blue tarp in the grave, but no body. They suspect that someone had dug up the grave. Although the suspects have been arrested, Jennifer's body has not been found. Her family is devastated. Although justice is imminent for their daughter, they acknowledge that arresting Jennifer's killer will not bring her back, so the family's grief will never be completely gone. Fotis was set on $6 million bail on January 8, 2020. He was released the following day, but is due back in court on February 8, 2020. Michelle was also released on bail. Kent was initially set on $2 million bail, but it was later reduced to more than $200,000. He was released on bail on October 19, 2020. After Fotis's heinous acts began to be discovered, he became extremely fearful. On January 28, 2020, Fotis failed to appear at an emergency hearing, prompting the judge to issue a warrant for his arrest. When police arrived at Fotis's Farmington home to serve the warrant, they found him unconscious in his car, unable to face the consequences of his actions. Fotis attempted suicide by inhaling carbon monoxide. He connected the SUV's exhaust pipe to a vacuum cleaner and placed it inside his car. Police performed CPR and restored his weak heartbeat. He was then taken by ambulance to Yukon Medical Center, then transferred to Jacob Medical Center in the Bronx for hyperbaric oxygen therapy. While in the hospital, Fotis' children, who were living with their grandmother, visited him for the first time since he was charged with Jennifer's murder. Police found a suicide note in Fotis's car. In it, he wrote that he could not bear to spend even 1 hour in jail for a crime he knew nothing about. On January 30, 2020, Jacobs Medical Center confirmed Fotis' death. Police later released a report that included information from Anna Curry, Fotis' last girlfriend. Anna said she was with Fotis on the day of the emergency hearing. According to Anna, she and Fotis planned to drive to court together, but finally Fotis suggested they go separately. Anna admitted that she was panicked and she received a call from Fotis's lawyer asking about Fotis's absence from court. Anna was driving at the time and responded that Fotis was supposed to be there. The attorney said the GPS device showed that Fotis was still at his home in Farmington. Anna immediately realized that Fotis might have harmed himself and asked the attorney to call 911. After Fotis' death, the murder charges against him were dismissed on March 3, 2020. The judge ordered the prosecutor to apply null prosequi, abandonment of prosecution. This does not mean that Fotis is acquitted, but simply that the case cannot proceed due to his death. Abandonment of prosecution acknowledges this fact, but gives the prosecutor 1 year to reopen the case if he wishes. Otherwise, the case will be dismissed permanently. During the hearing, Fotis attorney Norm Pattis wanted to clear his client's name. He claimed that Fotis was framed and argued that the framer had dumped bloody clothes and incriminating evidence in front of Fotis's house. Norm explained that if Fotis was the perpetrator, he would not have accidentally dumped these items, leading to the police discovering them on surveillance cameras. Norm asked for the Fotis estate to be substituted as a defendant, but the request was not considered. Michelle is under house arrest after being charged with conspiracy to murder Jennifer. Michelle's attorney, John Sean, admitted in an interview that his client's case has not progressed. Michelle was scheduled to appear in court on August 6, 2020, while Kent Douglas Mamoni was scheduled to appear in court on June 2, 2020. Both have pleaded not guilty to the charges. In an interview, Michelle responded to those who judge her without knowing her well. She admitted that she can be wrong about others, but she cannot say whether Fotis killed his wife. However, she believes that believing Fotis was a waste of time, and this has been proven true. For years after Jennifer went missing, she has still not been found. Police searched for her body in several locations over the years. In 2019, they began searching Wavani Park, 3 miles from New Canaan. They used dogs and a helicopter to thoroughly search the area. The search for Jennifer expanded beyond the initial area, including New York City, where the family owned property. After a thorough search there, police turned their attention to central Connecticut. In Hartford, police discovered surveillance footage showing Fotis dumping trash bags in various dumpsters around the city. This led to a weeks-long search of the waste treatment plant, where police found key evidence. The search continued at a fishing pond in Avon that the Dullos family frequented. Police also searched properties owned by Jennifer's husband's company in central Connecticut, with an estimated 3,000 acres searched. However, despite extensive search efforts, Jennifer has not been found. In August 2021, the investigation led police to a Farmington home on Mountain Spring Road that was associated with Jennifer's husband. Police decided to search the home to follow up on previous leads. They invited Bob Perry, a well-known expert in finding unmarked graves, to join the search. Police also brought in septic tank pumping equipment and an excavator to increase the effectiveness of the search. However, to date, police have not released any information about the discovery of Jennifer's body. Although the tragedy of Jennifer was heartbreaking, it did lead to a positive outcome. In May 2021, the Connecticut Senate passed a landmark domestic violence bill. The bill was named after Jennifer and Jennifer Magnano, 2 victims of domestic violence. The bill received near-unanimous support from members of the Senate. Governor Ned Lamont signed the bill into law on June 28, 2021. Jennifer's family is still deeply saddened by her passing. In a recent interview, a family spokesperson expressed their deep sorrow for Jennifer. He emphasized that her wonderful personality and optimistic spirit left a deep impression, causing even those who never met Jennifer to feel heartbroken by her disappearance. Welcome back, mystery lovers. Today's case is going to keep you on the edge of your seat. The case of Klondike Bishimbayev. Klondike Bishimbayev was born on April 11, 1980, in Gildorda, which was part of the Kazakh SSR. In 2000, Klondike began his career as a bank manager. He completed a short internship at the Ministry of Economy, then spent several years in senior roles at major companies before returning to the ministry. In 2016, he became the Minister of Economy, making him one of the youngest high-ranking officials in Kazakhstan. However, just 8 months later, he was dismissed due to a major scandal and was imprisoned for accepting large bribes. He received a 10-year sentence but was released on parole after 1 year. He later apologized to Nursultan Nazarbayev, the then president, who granted him a pardon. Quandik's personal life includes 2 official marriages before he met the future victim. His first marriage was to Agarim Rova in 1999, while he was still a student. They had a son, Alisander Valakin, in 2000, but their marriage ended in 2004. In 2006, while working as an advisor to the Minister of Economy and Budget Planning in Kazakhstan, he married Nazim Karmanbabagaleva. They were married for 14 years and had 3 children together. However, in 2020, Nazim initiated their divorce. Sultanat Nuknova was born on May 15, 1992, in Pavlodar, a city in northern Kazakhstan. As a schoolgirl, Sultanat developed a strong interest in astrology. She thoroughly studied related literature and created horoscopes and natal charts for her friends and classmates. To her surprise, many of her predictions turned out to be quite accurate. Eventually, she decided to turn her hobby into a profession, and success followed quickly. Sultanat promoted her astrological services on social media, offering personal and online consultations. She provided both short-term and long-term forecasts, assisted people in achieving their goals, choosing careers, and finding spiritual growth. Additionally, she offered advice on love, assessed compatibility, and helped individuals navigate their relationships. Sultanat only worked with women and girls. She quickly became financially independent by earning good money from her passion, something she knew well and enjoyed. Her social media following grew significantly, and many people sought her services, leading to consultations being booked months ahead. She was finally living the life she had always dreamed of. In the spring of 2022, Quandik Bishimbayev, who was a dedicated fan, came across Sultanat's page on a popular social media platform. He was captivated by the young beauty and decided to reach out to her by signing up for an astrological consultation. However, she turned him down, explaining that she only offered services to women. This rejection only increased Quandik's interest in her. He persistently sought her attention by showering her with compliments and trying to win her over, insisting that she was the only one who could help him and that he exclusively trusted her expertise. Although Sultanat appreciated his flattery, she was determined to avoid meeting him, finding his behavior distasteful. He repeatedly offered her an online consultation, but she was firm in his refusal. For months, Quandik persistently tried to ask Sultanat out on a date. During this time, he learned almost everything about her: where she lived, who she interacted with, where she went, and what her interests were. Despite this, Sultanat continued to reject his advances but told her friends that she had an ardent admirer. Eventually, Sultanat agreed to meet him. Quandik made every effort to impress her. He was polite and courteous. However, that first meeting was only the beginning. In a candid discussion with her brother, Sultanat expressed that the man was not her type and that a relationship between them was unlikely. Initially, neither Sultanat nor her family was worried about the Quandik's behavior. She believed she could keep him at a distance, and her family and friends trusted that she could make her own choices. However, a month later, the situation began to shift. He found a way to get closer to Sultanat by reaching out to the eldest member of her family. He expressed a desire to speak with her grandmother and seek her blessing. This gesture affected Sultanat, but she still declined to pursue a relationship with him. Unexpectedly, in the fall of 2022, Sultanat visited her parents in Pavlodar and shared that she didn't expect any significant changes in her personal life. She confessed to her brother that she was troubled by the 12-year age gap with Quandik and felt no romantic attraction towards him. Additionally, her astrological calculations indicated they weren't compatible. However, less than a month after that visit, her brother stumbled upon a post on social media where Sultanat announced that Klondike had officially proposed to her and she had happily accepted. This news shocked the entire family, as it was completely unexpected. Even her friends were taken aback, as she had recently told them that Klondike was not the right match for her and she believed nothing serious would come of it. In December 2022, just a few months after they met, they held an extravagant wedding, featuring an expensive banquet at one of the most popular venues in Astana. It's important to note that their marriage was not officially registered. They only participated in a special marriage ceremony at a mosque and did not register their union with the authorities, so they were considered civil partners. During this time, Sultanat's feelings towards her partner changed significantly. She frequently shared with her friends how intelligent, educated, well-read, and articulate he was, and how he could easily engage in conversations on any topic. She also firmly denied any wrongdoing on his part in a high-profile corruption case that led to his brief imprisonment, insisting that he had been framed and was serving time for someone else's crime. On the surface, the couple seemed happy. Klondike showered his wife with gifts, and she affectionately referred to him as her golden husband, expressing that she had no regrets about marrying him. Their friends admired them and actually celebrated her marriage. However, this happiness was short-lived. The first warning sign appeared after their wedding when the couple moved into the home of the husband's parents. The parents lived on the first floor, while the newlyweds stayed on the second floor. Almira, the mother, tried to shower Sultanat with love and support, often giving her gifts and helping her from household chores. However, she was unable to protect Sultanat from her husband's behavior. Sultanat occasionally visited her parents with her husband, but she chose not to invite them to her home because it upset Klondike and led to arguments. Initially, her family was unaware of this, but less than a month after her wedding, her brother, Ibek, visited her on New Year's Eve and witnessed an uncomfortable situation. A large festive table was set up, but the celebration was meant to be a small family gathering. When her brother and his wife arrived with gifts for everyone, Sultanat felt embarrassed because she had no gift to offer in return. To resolve the awkwardness, she decided to give the woman a bottle of expensive perfume that her husband had bought for her the day before, which she hadn't opened yet. However, her actions not only upset her husband, they made him extremely angry. He yelled that she had no right to give away what he had given her and started insulting her. The guests, sensing the escalating tension, quickly decided to leave the house. The parents, attempting to defend their daughter-in-law, were abruptly silenced. To make matters worse, in his fury, Klondike overturned the table filled with food and drinks, ruining the New Year's Eve celebration. Ibek was taken aback by what he witnessed and was unsure how to respond. The following day, during a phone call, Sultanat revealed that her husband's behavior had drastically changed since their wedding. She didn't understand why and was hopeful that the situation would improve over time. Ibek advised her to come home and end the relationship, but Sultanat firmly rejected his advice. 2 months after the incident, Sultanat unexpectedly sent her brother some selfies. In these pictures, her face was covered with severe bruises, and she asked him not to ask her any questions. Concerned, her brother attempted to reach her by phone, but she didn't answer. He then called her husband, who agreed to meet for a discussion. During their meeting, Klondike, Sultanat's husband, told him to stay out of their affairs and refused to explain the bruises. He also couldn't tell him where she was, which left her brother feeling very uneasy. Fortunately, Sultanat was discovered in her parents' country apartment, where she had a set of keys. Despite her loved one's pleas, she decided to return to her husband, claiming that she loved him and was willing to do anything to save their marriage. For a while, her husband treated her well, showering her with gifts and promising to change for her. They even took a trip together to a popular resort in the Maldives, appearing very happy. However, later, the vacation photos revealing visible bruises on Sultanat's body and fingerprints on her wrists suggesting she had been roughly grabbed. Ibeck stated that neither he nor his parents had heard his sister mention any issues in her marriage since then, although her behavior and appearance changes were telling. She had lost a significant amount of weight and became more reserved. She started wearing outfits to cover up the bruises and cuts on her body. Additionally, she stopped taking appointments and ceased offering online consultations. On social media, she only posted photos with her husband, expressing her luck and love for him. As it later turned out, her husband prohibited her from pursuing her passion, leaving her without any income and fully dependent on him. He monitored all her actions and interactions. She needed his permission to meet friends or have lunch in a cafe without him. He even checked her phone calls and messages. Sultanat was only seen in public with Klondike, who acted like a devoted and caring husband. Most of her friends were unaware of the distress she faced at home and even envied what seemed to be a perfect family. Once, Sultanat recently shared with a close friend that her husband controlled every aspect of her life. He forbade her from working, prohibited her from communicating with her parents without his permission, and was unreasonably jealous, often accusing her of infidelity. He also physically abused her. When her friend heard this, she was shocked and urged the woman, Sultanat, to leave her husband right away. However, Sultanat reacted by yelling and insisted that she wasn't seeking advice, she simply wanted to talk about her situation. Sultanat, seeking to save their marriage, sought help from a family psychologist. However, her husband dismissed all the options suggested by his wife and insisted on using his own specialist. During their sessions, this psychologist convinced Sultanat that she was solely responsible for their problems. In a recent conversation with her brother, Sultanat expressed her concerns that her husband had hired the psychologist specifically to belittle and demoralize her once again. In the summer of 2023, Sultanat tried to leave her husband and planned to stay at her parents' house for a while. However, just a week later, Klondike came to take her back, asking her to give their marriage another chance. He suggested they move into his house, and Sultanat thought that a new environment might help their relationship. She also believed that having a child together would improve her husband's treatment of her, but she was unable to get pregnant. At the last family dinner in October, Sultanat attempted to leave her controlling husband and quickly sought a rented apartment with her brother's help. However, just 10 days later, she not only returned to him but also underwent the marriage ceremony again at the mosque, a fact she shared with her family. On November 5th, she invited her parents, brother, and a few close friends to a restaurant owned by Klondike's brother, Bakitsan Bazanov, to celebrate their reunion. During the ceremony, her husband acted very gallantly and courteously, showing his affection for her and vowing to protect her, while always keeping an affectionate eye on her. That evening, everyone was convinced of his genuine feelings and words, but tragedy was just days away. On November 9th of the same year, Sultanat's brother returned home from work and was going about his day when he received a phone call. A relative, sounding frightened, asked him if the rumors circulating on social media were true. Confused, he asked her to explain what was going on. She then sent him a link to a news article stating that the former Minister of Economy had killed his young wife. Ibeck was disheartened by the news but found it hard to believe what he read. Just the day before, he had spoken to his younger sister, who had once again mentioned that she planned to leave her husband. She had asked him if she could stay over at his place, and he told her she was welcome anytime, even pointing out where the spare keys were. However, neither that evening nor the following day did she come home, and her phone had been silent since then. The man hurried to his sister's house, but found it empty. Her husband was also not picking up his phone, and the situation was becoming urgent. They quickly decided to head to the family restaurant, where Sultanat had last reached out to them, to seek answers. While Ibeck was on the way, he received a call from his parents, who had seen the news and wanted to understand what was going on. However, He couldn't provide them with any information and only assured them he would find out more. Many police officers were present in the restaurant. When they learned that Sultanat's relative had arrived, they immediately offered their condolences, explaining that Sultanat had died before the medics could assist her. Ibek was in disbelief. He thought it must be a terrible mistake, but the news was unfortunately true. Witnesses indicated that by the time Ibek arrived, Kwondike had already been arrested and taken to the station as the main suspect. Kwondike firmly denied any wrongdoing, describing the incident as a tragic accident and insisting that he had been trying to help his wife. Additionally, his brother and who was the restaurant owner, Bakitsin Bazanov, were also taken into custody on suspicion of involvement. In the beginning, the suspect's lawyer claimed that his client was completely innocent and pointed out the lack of evidence against him. However, it was later revealed that the ex-minister and his brother had destroyed crucial evidence by deleting video recordings from cameras inside and outside the restaurant. Fortunately, experts were able to recover the footage, which shocked everyone who saw it. The investigation into this complex case lasted nearly 4 months, during which Kwondike continued to assert his innocence. He acted as though he believed he could escape punishment, even as he faced serious charges of murder with extreme cruelty. Forensic experts who examined the deceased noted that they had never seen such extensive and severe injuries before. Some of these injuries occurred 6 to 8 hours before her death, suggesting she was beaten for a long time, leaving no uninjured areas on her face and body. Kwondike's lawyers attempted to downplay his responsibility. He himself claimed that most of his wife's injuries were self-inflicted due to her being drunk, stating that she frequently fell and hit her head on the bathroom tiles and furniture. According to Kwondike testimony, on the evening of November 8, 2023, the couple attended a concert by singer Dima Bilan with friends. During the concert, they had a heated argument, but the friends couldn't clearly explain what it was about. The loud music made it hard for them to notice that Kwondike and Sultanat was fighting. They initially thought the couple were just having a discussion. Suddenly, the couple left the concert hall without saying a word. They then went to the Bao restaurant, where they continued their argument privately in a VIP cabin. The camera footage reveals that Kwondike took several bottles of alcohol from the bar and went to a booth with his wife. While they shared a bottle of wine and talked about their relationship, she expressed her dissatisfaction and announced her intention to leave him. This infuriated Kwondike. He screamed at her, threatened and slapped her. Following this, she called her brother and informed him that she would be staying at his house for the night because she had decided to leave her husband. Around midnight, as she was leaving for her brother's house, her husband confronted her and continued the argument. The surveillance footage reveals that the couple argued for about 15 minutes. Eventually, the man persuaded his spouse to re-enter the building for a short time. Inside, they continued to fight in the vestibule before isolating themselves in a stall, where there were no cameras, leaving us to speculate about what happened there. Footage from the hallway camera captures Sultanat attempting to escape from her husband. She acted calmly and maintained her distance while he repeatedly tried to close the gap, grabbing her hands, shaking his head, and pushing her against the wall. Sultanat, unable to escape, tried to hide from her abusive husband by locking herself in the bathroom. However, he began to kick the door violently, causing damage as he attempted to break in. When he finally got in, he struck her multiple times in the face. He then said that she was dependent on him, claiming that he had met all her needs. The husband alleged that in a fit of anger, Sultanat stripped off her clothes and jewelry, flushing them down the toilet to show that she did not want anything from him. Alternatively, some accounts suggest that he forced her to undress to humiliate her. After the gold jewelry fell down the drain, Kwondike became enraged and struck his wife multiple times in the face. He then pushed her forcefully, causing her to fall and hit the toilet. During the trial, he argued that his wife was drunk and had fallen several times while undressing, hitting her head on the tiles and plumbing. He claimed that they had planned to go home after leaving the restaurant, but he felt unable to drive because he had consumed too much alcohol. He also didn't want to call a cab because he was embarrassed by his wife's drunken state, as she was wearing a coat over her underwear. They returned to the booth in the same stall. Shortly after, the couple exited, but Sultanat paused to look at her injured face in the mirror. Her husband then aggressively pushed her towards the exit, leading to a violent confrontation. He brutally attacked her with his hands and feet and pulled her by her hair. Around 7 o'clock in the morning, he dragged her back to the VIP cabin. There, he ultimately caused her death, although during the trial, he claimed he hadn't harmed her, arguing that she had fallen and injured herself on the floor and furniture. He said that Sultanat lay on the sofa and fainted. He noticed a bruise on her face and felt worried, but instead of calling an ambulance, he contacted a fortune teller to see if everything was okay with his wife. The fortune teller assured him that she was just drunk and needed rest, which made Klondike feel more at ease and decide not to interfere. He mentioned hearing snoring, which he later realized was actually a death rattle. Around noon, he realized his wife was no longer breathing and urgently called his brother, Bakitson, for help. They decided to close the restaurant and asked the staff to leave. After that, they erased footage from all the CCTV cameras. During the trial, Bakitson stated he trusted his younger brother's claim that Sultanat was just drunk and asleep and agreed to delete the recordings, which he believed showed her behaving inappropriately and bringing shame to herself and her family. Bakitson only called an ambulance later in the evening, by which time her body was already cold and rigor mortis had set in. He claimed he attempted to resuscitate her, but it was too late. Sultanat had already passed away. The investigation also focused on Nazim, Klondike's wife and mother of his 3 children. A few years prior, when the ex-minister was arrested for corruption, she defended him publicly. However, shortly after his release, she filed for divorce, citing irreconcilable differences and stating that she had outgrown their marriage. However, after her ex-husband was publicly accused of brutally murdering his new wife, Nazim gave an honest interview. She acknowledged that he was indeed capable of such a crime. Nazim shared that they had been married for 14 years, but after the birth of their second child in 2011, her husband became aggressive, selfish, and narcissistic. He began to think the world should revolve around him, with his opinions as the most important. Furthermore, he constantly cheated on her, without any effort to hide it. Klondike was arrested in 2017, and it was only then that Nazim discovered the full extent of his infidelity by accessing his personal data on his phone. She learned that he had multiple mistresses, who frequently changed. After he was released by the Pardon Commission, he became increasingly violent and aggressive. A month later, a minor disagreement escalated between the couple, and in a fit of rage, he smashed the toilet lid and threw it at Nazim. Nazim successfully avoided confrontation, but in that moment, she understood that her marriage had come to an end. She believed that Klondike had suppressed his darker tendencies for a long time, knowing she would not accept such behavior. However, he did not hold back when it came to humiliating and insulting his mistresses, who were unable to resist him. Regarding Sultanat, Nazim thinks that Klondike deliberately selected his target and tested her patience and willingness to endure. Once he realized she would stay quiet and wouldn't leave, he revealed his true nature as a refined sadist. The trial started in March 2024, and it quickly became apparent that it would be challenging. The family of Sultanat demanded that the trial be as transparent as possible, allowing journalists to attend and the public to observe the proceedings. They were concerned that Klondike might leverage his wealth and extensive connections to pressure witnesses and judges in an effort to evade a severe punishment. He requested a jury trial, which was approved. A total of 12 jurors were chosen, 10 main jurors and 2 alternates, along with the presiding judge. Klondike had previously been convicted of a serious crime but was out on parole. a new serious offense could have led to a life sentence. In a jury trial, he would only face the death penalty if every juror, along with the judge, unanimously agreed. The chances of this happening were very low, so he held on to that hope. During the trial, he repeatedly claimed he was not guilty of premeditated murder with particular cruelty, arguing that the incident was accidental and resulted from a tragic mix of circumstances. He stated that his spouse provoked him by insulting him, yelling, and becoming physically aggressive. However, numerous recovered video recordings from surveillance cameras presented evidence that contradicted the initial claims. The authorities initially attempted to charge him with domestic violence, a crime in Kazakhstan that, due to lenient laws, does not carry severe penalties. This decision sparked significant criticism, particularly from the family of Sultanat. Her mother, in court, expressed her heartbreak over being unable to say goodbye to her daughter due to the severity of the injuries, while fearing that her son-in-law might face only a minor punishment, which shattered her faith in justice. In response to the public outrage, a new law was enacted in April 2024 to impose stricter penalties for domestic violence in Kazakhstan. Klondike pressured his brother, who was accused of being an accomplice, to provide false testimony to help him avoid consequences for his actions. However, Bakitson requested the court to protect him from Klondike, and this request was granted. Throughout the hearings, Klondike made numerous attempts to disparage his late wife, labeling her as inadequate, unbalanced, and an alcoholic who frequently cheated on him and provoked his anger. He tried to persuade the court that he acted out of passion that night and only struck his wife a couple of times, claiming those injuries were not fatal. He argued that all her other injuries were self-inflicted due to her frequent intoxication. He claimed that the bruises on her neck were caused by attempts to revive her, insisting that he was trying to help. But his brother, Bakitson, stated that Klondike prevented him from calling for medical assistance for Sultanat and was more interested in deleting footage from the cameras. Klondike then instructed him to take her cell phone back to their home to make it look like she was moving around the city, tricking her brother, Ibek, into believing she had returned to the apartment, even though he was monitoring her location. During the 9th hearing, he and his lawyer asked for the judge to step down, claiming they was biased. Their request was denied, and the judge continued overseeing the trial until a verdict was reached. On May 13, 2024, he was found guilty of serious charges, including inflicting bodily harm, torture, and murder of his common-law wife. He received a 20-year sentence for murder and an additional 7 years for battery and torture. In total, he was sentenced to 24 years in prison. His brother, Bakitson Bazanov, was also convicted, received a 4-year prison sentence for providing shelter. The court considered his lack of prior legal issues, his genuine remorse, and his full cooperation with the investigation. However, the family of the victim, Sultanat, expressed their dissatisfaction with the ruling. Her father had hoped for a life sentence for his former son-in-law, claiming that any lesser sentence would be unjust. Meanwhile, Sultanat's brother pointed out that a 24-year prison term for the 44-year-old defendant effectively amounted to a life sentence. The tragic story of Klondike Bishimbayev and Sultanat Nukhnova serves as a haunting reminder of the devastating consequences of domestic abuse and the complexities of relationships marred by control and violence. Despite Sultanat's initial dreams of independence and success, her life took a harrowing turn, ultimately leading to a heartbreaking end that shocked her loved ones and exposed the darker aspects of her husband's character. This narrative underscores the critical need for awareness, support systems, and interventions to protect individuals from the perilous cycle of abuse, highlighting the importance of listening to and believing victims before it's too late. Hello again, true crime fans. We've got another mysterious case to explore. The case of Carly McBride. Carly McBride was born on April 14, 1983, to Steve McBride and Lorraine. As a child, she was cheerful and outgoing, sharing a close bond with her parents. However, as an adult, Carly began to experience many difficulties, which led to her abusing alcohol and drugs. Despite these challenges, she worked hard to overcome her addictions. By 2014, Carly was 31 years old and living in Belmont, New South Wales, Australia. She was a mother to 2 children, William, who was 7, and Cadence, who was 3. The children's fathers were different men. It is known that Andrew Easton, the father of Cadence, was one of the last people to see Carly. In 2013, Carly entered a rehab center to get rid of her addiction. During her time there, she met Sale Kenneth Newson, and their friendship gradually developed into a deeper relationship. Starting in August 2014, Carly and Sale spent nearly all their time together. Although they occasionally had arguments, they appeared happy overall. On September 30, 2014, Sale took Carly to Musselburgh to visit her 3-year-old daughter, Cadence, who lived with her father, Andrew Easton. Carly visited Cadence for a few hours, entering Andrew's house around 12:30 p.m. Sale did not stay with her, but they agreed that he would return in a few hours. However, when Sale arrived to pick up Carly, she was missing. Carly's ex-husband, Andrew, mentioned they had a fight, which led Carly to leave. She intended to walk to the nearest McDonald's, about a 20-minute walk from Andrew's house. Sale, confused as to why Carly hadn't called to inform him of her whereabouts, he began trying to reach her by phone. After several unsuccessful attempts, he decided to drive to McDonald's, hoping to find her there. During the drive, he looked around in case Carly was waiting somewhere along the way. He thought it was possible her phone had died, but Carly was not at McDonald's or anywhere nearby. Sale drove around the streets of Musselburgh for a while, but he couldn't find Carly. When she didn't come home to Belmont that evening, he contacted the police. The detectives asked him to describe what had happened. Sale explained that he would drop Carly off, and she would walk to the front door with her daughter, turn around, and wave goodbye. He mentioned that she would usually call him twice and send him 2 texts during each visit to let him know she was okay. However, he noted that on that day, he dropped her off around 12:30 p.m., and everything felt different. He did not hear from her again at all. He texted and called her, but the phone kept ringing, and she didn't answer it. Sale arrived at Carly's ex-husband, Andrew's house around 4:30 p.m., as he usually did, to pick up she. However, Andrew told him that she had left after an argument at around 2 p.m. and walked toward a McDonald's about a mile away. This raised an important question: did Carly really leave Andrew's house, or was he withholding information? Andrew claimed to be the last person to see her, but there were no other witnesses to confirm that Carly left. The police spoke with neighbors and others along the route she might have taken to McDonald's, but since no one saw her, suspicion about Andrew increases. There are no surveillance cameras near Andrew's house that could verify his statement about Carly leaving at around 2 p.m. Investigators also reviewed footage from surveillance cameras at McDonald's but found no evidence that she had been there. The police conducted searches in fields behind a nearby residential area for clues, but the chief investigator stated that nothing lead had been discovered. The investigation will continue, and the police are asking anyone with information about Carly McBride's disappearance to come forward. She was last seen in blue jeans, sandals, and a yellow t-shirt, carrying a tan handbag. After getting a search warrant, the police searched the house Andrew, where Carly was last seen. A team of officers hoped to find clues about the disappearance of she. However, their search of Andrew's house revealed no new evidence. There was no sign that anyone had committed a crime in that house. Despite this, investigators found something concerning. Carly's Facebook account was deleted just hours after she went missing, before an official report was filed. This thing deletion sparked many questions. Are Carly's account deletion and her disappearance related? Did she delete her account herself, or did someone else do it? What was the reason for the account deletion? The Facebook messages might hold clues about what happened, which could explain why the account was removed. To find answers, detectives reached out to the U.S. Department of Justice, seeking assistance to recover Carly's account and identify who deleted it. Although Facebook data analysis is conducted at their headquarters in Menlo Park, California, Sergeant Wright mentioned that Carly's Facebook friends could also provide useful information. The New South Wales police are asking if anyone had contact with Carly on Facebook or other social media platforms in the days before her disappearance. They are looking for anyone who noticed something unusual and are encouraging them to come forward with information. Carly's parents doubted that she simply ran away to start a new life. Her close friend and roommate, Kylie Smith, mentioned that everything seemed normal when she spoke with Carly on the phone while on her way to Musselbrook. Kylie described Carly as very relatable and a free spirit. She was easygoing and loved life. She was always supportive of her friends. If someone was having a tough day, she could sense it and reach out. Kylie said that, every day they wake up not knowing what happened or where Carly is. Please, have some conscience and come forward with any information. They just need something to hold on to. The police conducted a comprehensive search of the area where Carly was last seen before she disappeared. This search involved search dogs, police divers checking the Hunter River and nearby locations, as well as aerial surveillance and patrols on trail bikes. Unfortunately, this did not lead to any clues as to Carly's whereabouts. As months went by, the investigation yielded no results. Carly left no traces after her disappearance. She did not turn on her phone, her social media accounts remained inactive, and she did not use any bank cards. Investigators started to fear that Carly may no longer be alive. 9 months after Carly went missing, her parents asked for help in locating their daughter. They were assisted by Detective Timothy Seymour, who could gather any information that might aid the investigation. Carly's mother, Lorraine, wept during the public appeal and begged for help to find her beloved daughter. She urged that if anyone knew anything, no matter how small, they should come forward and help family her. Detective Inspector Timothy Seymour stated that officers had been working hard since Carly went missing. He explained that they had a lot of information to review but were still asking for help. He also said that important information can come from a person, even if they think what they know is unimportant. As time passed, Carly's parents began to accept that they might never see their daughter alive again. Lorraine wrote a touching letter to the man who took her daughter from her. "I believe everyone knows what happened to my girl or has seen the events of that tragic day. Please help us for her children. They are innocent and beautiful babies. Whoever you are, you have taken their mother away, their source of joy and happiness, their pillar of strength." Lorraine wrote a heartfelt letter to the man who kidnapped Carly. In her letter, she stressed that, no matter who he was, he had removed their mother from their lives, which took away their joy, happiness. They will never experience Carly's gentle, warm kisses or her comforting hugs, or see her bright smile. Their cherished memories are gone, and they cannot say goodbye to her. Lorraine speaker that sorrow, anger, and frustration weighed heavily on them. After failing to find Andrew's involvement in Carly's disappearance, the police began investigating another suspect, Sale Newson. They discovered that Carly and Sale's relationship was troubled, primarily due to Sale's jealousy, which often led to arguments. Although they have only been together for a relatively short time, but Sale insists that he loves Carly very much, saying that she is the first woman he has truly loved in 14 years. He urgently sought information about Carly's disappearance, helped create a Facebook page, offered rewards, and approached people in the area where she was last seen. Despite publicly expressing his love for Carly, but Sale quickly began intimate relationships with other women. Just hours after reporting Carly missing, he propositioned several women for sex. Carly went missing on September 30th, but by October 2nd, and Sale was spending the night with another woman. Yet publicly, he portrayed himself as a heartbroken individual mourning the loss of his girlfriend. Detectives found out that Sale and Carly had a disagreement 2 days before she went missing. The argument was about Facebook messages that Carly received from other men. However, this information was only circumstantial evidence, and they needed more direct evidence to file any charges against Sale Newson. In April 2015, authorities conducted searches at 3 locations, 1 in Muswellbrook and 2 in Scone, a town in the Upper Hunter Shire of New South Wales, Australia. Scone is located approximately 15 miles from Muswellbrook. During these searches, police confiscated 3 firearms and a quantity of illegal substances, leading to the arrest of a 24-year-old man named James Anthony Canine. Although the police stated that these charges were not connected to the ongoing investigation into Carly's disappearance, they surfaced during the investigation. Therefore, it's important to remember this name. Almost 2 years had passed since Carly was last seen alive, and the police were still investigating her case without any new leads. However, on August 7, 2016, there was a lead new. In a rural area near Scone, 2 local pedestrians discovered remains in a shallow grave just a few feet off the road. Forensic analysis confirmed that these remains belonged to Carly McBride, a mother of 2 from Belmont who had disappeared on September 30, 2014, in Muswellbrook. Police delayed announcing the discovery of her body for 4 days in the hope of gathering more evidence. Superintendent Guyana emphasized that the police do not think Carly, 31, was taken from the street by a stranger. He stated that this was not a random act, and they were investigating her past and reaching out to as many people as possible. He refrained from naming any suspects, noting that the investigation was still in its early stages. Superintendent Guyana said that they have worked hard on this case over the past 2 years and the team is eager to find answers for Carly's family, added that they still have a lot of new information to process, and the case is still making good progress. Carly's parents have been desperately searching for information about their daughter's case. Lorraine has asked anyone who knows anything to come forward, as they want to find out who is responsible for her death. Finding Carly's body has given them some sense of closure. They are very grateful for the support from law enforcement and the community throughout the search. After 10 months of diligent investigation, a warrant was issued for Sale Newson's arrest on June 19, 2017. He has since been arrested and is in custody, but he denies any involvement in Carly's death. However, Sale was not the only person facing charges. Police suspect that 26-year-old James assisted Sale in disposing of Carly's body. Sale and James met at a rehabilitation center for individuals struggling with alcohol and substance abuse. Although they left the center at different times and for different reasons, they maintained contact afterward. Sale Newson's trial started in August 2018 and extended over several years due to the police only having circumstantial evidence. Prosecutors claimed that Sale met Carly after she left Andrew's house, attacked her in a fit of jealousy, and then disposed of her body. Forensic experts concluded that Carly died from multiple blunt force trauma, which included 23 skull fractures, 13 torso fractures, and injuries to her spine and ribs. The judge pointed out that Sale had claimed to the police that he was an experienced mixed martial arts fighter, boasting that he had had 20 fights and had won them all, and that he had trained with world champions. The judge determined that the cause of death was severe brain trauma resulting from significant force applied to Carly's head, concluding that he was convinced Sale had caused her death using his fists, feet, or potentially both, as well as objects. During their search of Sale's house, police discovered a map inside a shoebox under the bed. The map featured a circle drawn around the towns of Muswellbrook and Scone, with Carly's remains located precisely within that area. Additionally, the map displayed the numbers 1, 2, and 3, which pointed to locations outside Musselbrook. Senior Constable Mohini confirmed that the first two numbers indicated the positions of cameras. After police discovered Carly's remains in 2016, Sale called her father, Steve. In their conversation, he revealed that the skeleton found was missing hand bones, a detail that the police had not shared with the public. Only a small group, Carly's parents, the police, and the Department of Forensic Medicine at John Hunter Hospital, were aware of this information. Authorities suspected that Sale was aware of this detail because he had intimate knowledge of the crime scene and was responsible for leaving Carly's body there, which was discovered 2 years later. Additionally, the clothes found on Carly's remains were the same as those she wore when she disappeared, indicating that she likely died soon after leaving Andrew's house. The police were unable to locate her purse and phone. When they examined Sale's mobile phone, they found that he had deleted Google location data for the period between September 18 and October 2, 2014. During the trial, investigators discovered that a photo of Carly, taken by Sale while he was traveling to Musselbrook, had been edited and cropped before the police were notified of her disappearance. When the search for Carly started, Sale promised a $20,000 reward for information about her location, but his bank account indicated he was broke. This suggested that he made the offer knowing that no one would find her, so he wouldn't have to actually pay the reward. From the beginning, Sale also tried to involve himself in the police investigation to shift suspicion away from himself onto others. While police and emergency services were gathering information, Sale also searched the surrounding streets for security camera footage or witnesses. However, the police stated that this search sales was not meant to gather information, but rather to cover up details and see if anyone had witnessed him met with Carly. As volunteers and police organized their search around Musselbrook and distributed Carly flyers. Sale was in Sydney texting friends about driving an Audi R8. He claimed to be very familiar with the area where Carly was discovered and even described it to her father, Steve, despite only having seen footage of a staged crime scene set up by the police. The images show a staged crime scene created by the police to observe Sale's reaction. As investigators conducted interviews, reviewed his Facebook messages, and listened to his phone calls, they found more evidence against him. They discovered that Sale had searched online for how to delete a Facebook account. Although his account remained active, Carly's account was deleted shortly afterward. Although the initial evidence was circumstantial, but the prosecutor noted that when the clues were put together, they started to form a clearer picture of the case. Ultimately, these pieces of evidence built a strong case that eliminated other explanations for Carly's disappearance and the discovery of her body, which was about 82 feet from the roadside. The judge determined that the motive behind the violent and impulsive attack on Carly was jealousy stemming from annoyance. After picking Carly up from Musselbrook, he learned that she had spent around 90 minutes with Andrew instead of with her daughter, as they had intended. Carly's daughter was not at home during that time, and the fact that Carly was alone with Andrew for an hour and a half led Sale to attack her in a fit of jealousy. Carly's mother, Lorraine, said at the sentencing hearing that she had spent the past 2 years filled with sadness and anxiety. She longed for her daughter, who was always full of life and loved to return home to her 2 young children. Unfortunately, she said that the next time she saw Carly was in the morgue, a day she described as the worst day of her life. Lorraine mentioned that Carly should be living her life with her children, her sister, her father, and her. She added that after that day, she never wanted to hear, speak, or see the man who took her beautiful daughter's life again, and that she refused to think about him anymore. Lorraine stated that she would miss Carly every second of every day for the rest of her life. Nearly 7 years after reporting Carly missing, 43-year-old Sale Newson was found guilty in December 2021. He received a sentence of 27 years in prison, with the possibility of parole in 2038. After the sentencing, Sale addressed the judge to reaffirm his innocence. Sale said that he understood the verdict had been issued. He addressed the judge, asserting that he was innocent, and from the day he reported Carly missing up to that moment, he had fully cooperated with the police, the courts, and the jails. He had been convicted of a crime he did not commit and that someone else was responsible for the crime, not him. Sale also said he now faces a huge challenge in proving his innocence in court. James, who assisted Sale in disposing of Carly's body, claimed he was not guilty. However, in July 2022, a jury convicted him. The judge stated that James had lied to police during 3 interrogations to provide a false alibi for Sale, and had deleted data from his phone to hide his actions. At the time he was charged in the Carly case, James was already incarcerated for illegal possession of weapons and prohibited substances. In November 2022, 31-year-old James Anthony Canine had little reaction when he was sentenced to 7.5 years in prison, followed by a 4-year parole period. After the trial, Carly's parents expressed that although justice was served, the verdict would never bring their daughter back. Hi everyone, thanks for returning. Let's unravel another perplexing mystery. The case of Farquharson family. At around 8 p.m. on September 4, 2005, a man emerged from the water near Lake Victoria in Australia, soaked and distressed. He flagged down a passing car, desperately seeking help. The man said that the car he was in, carrying 3 children, had crashed into a fence and fallen into the water. The man was later identified as Robert Farquharson, the children's father. Inside the submerged car were his 2-year-old son Bailey, 7-year-old Tyler, and 10-year-old Jai. Robert asked the driver to take him to the children's mother, who lived 8 kilometers from the lake. The driver complied and called emergency services at 000 to report the accident during the journey. As word spread, people flocked to the scene and some even dove into the water, hoping to rescue the children, but their efforts were futile. The car remained submerged and unreachable. Eventually, police, medical personnel, and rescuers arrived to assist. Robert explained to the police that while he had managed to escape the sinking car, he was unable to free the children, prompting him to seek help. His mobile phone had malfunctioned due to water damage, forcing him to stop a passing car for assistance. The search and rescue operation faced challenges due to darkness, and Robert could not pinpoint where the car had gone underwater. Although the water was cold, the divers continued their search for the car, aiming to help the children trapped inside. Time was critical, as the chances of survival diminished rapidly. It was essential to act quickly before the car filled with water. Around 2 a.m., divers recovered the bodies of the 3 children from the water. The car was about 30 meters from shore, submerged at a depth of 7.5 meters. Inside, the children were desperately trying to escape. They unbuckled their seatbelts, but tragically, they were unable to escape. Jai's body was found in the front door, while Tyler and Bailey were still in the back seat. Cindy, the boy's mother, was in shock after losing 3 sons in a flash. She was hospitalized and given sedatives to help her cope with her grief. Meanwhile, Robert was also hospitalized with hypothermia and minor injuries. The Farquharsons were well regarded in the community and were considered a model family. Cindy and Robert met in 1990. They welcomed their first child, Jai, in late 1994, their second, Tyler, in 1998, and eventually married in 2000. Bailey, their third child, was born 2 years later. Jai, the oldest brother, aspired to be a fireman or rescuer. On the day of the tragedy, he helped his younger brothers unbuckle their belts in an attempt to save everyone, but unfortunately, he was unable to do so. Tyler, the middle brother, is known for his playful and prankish nature, while the youngest, Bailey, is only 2 years old and is very attached to his brothers. The boys' parents had divorced several years before the tragedy. The children lived with Cindy, but Robert visited regularly and maintained open communication with them. The tragic day was also Father's Day, and the boys spent time with their father. Cindy gave Robert a set of pots and a framed photo of his sons as gifts for the occasion. Robert took the children to KFC for lunch, then they stopped at a store to buy a new baseball bat before going to their mother's house. On the way, an accident occurred. After recovering, Robert was questioned by the police. He claimed he was not speeding, but during the drive, he had a severe coughing fit that caused him to lose control of the car. The car crashed into a fence and ended up in the water, sliding several meters before starting to sink. The children in the car were screaming. Robert managed to surface to call for help and intended to go back to rescue the children, but he was unable to do so. A toxicology report found that Robert had not consumed alcohol or used illegal drugs on the day of the incident. He had just recovered from the flu and was suffering from a severe cough. Although the incident was ruled an accident, the police needed to conduct a thorough investigation. A memorial was set up on the shore of the lake, where people brought flowers, candles, and toys in memory of the children. Robert felt guilty about the accident and sought forgiveness from his ex-wife. He expressed that he tried his best to save the children but was unable to do so. His family members supported him during this difficult time, and Cindy defended Robert, believing in his innocence. She accepted that the children's deaths were a tragic accident. Forensic experts at the accident scene were puzzled by the absence of skid marks or braking marks on the road, which were expected to be present. They later found that when the car was discovered, its ignition and headlights were off, and the rear doors were locked. This raised questions. How could this have happened? Could it be that the father intentionally did this instead of trying to save his children? On September 11th, Cindy and Robert were released from the hospital and were able to hold a burial for their boys. Approximately 600 people attended the ceremony, with nearly the entire community coming to offer their condolences. The local residents who supported the family during this tragic time were also mourning alongside the heartbroken parents, who were struggling to cope. Robert's car was taken for inspection to check its overall functionality, especially the brakes and steering system. There might have been a technical issue that caused the brakes to fail. Police continued their work at the lake, trying to piece together how the incident occurred and why, with the goal of making the area safer. They attempted to recreate the events using the same car, but their efforts were unsuccessful. The steering wheel did not turn far enough to the right for the car to slide into the lake. This led police to question Robert's account, and he was asked to come to the police station for further questioning. He repeated the same story but couldn't clearly explain why the car's ignition, heating, and headlights were off. There were no signs of skidding or braking on the road. Police offered him a lie detector test, which Robert agreed to, but he failed. Experts determined that reaching the water would require turning the steering wheel sharply to the right by 220 degrees. If Robert had merely lost control due to coughing, he wouldn't have made such a sudden turn. He would have just gone off the road and not into the water. All checks on the car showed it was in perfect working condition, with no issues with the brakes, steering, headlights, or ignition. Therefore, police believed the actions were deliberate. The case was referred to the Homicide Division, and a detailed investigation began. An autopsy on the boys revealed they drowned, but their bodies had numerous abrasions and bruises, suggesting they may have been injured before their deaths. 3 months later, Robert was arrested and charged with the murder of the boys. He was shocked by the accusations and insisted that he was innocent, claiming that it was a tragic accident. Soon after, a witness came forward, one of Robert's friends, who revealed that just days before the incident, Robert had expressed his desire to harm his children then end his life as an act of revenge against his ex-wife. Because after the divorce Cindy got everything. A nice house, a luxury car, money, and even she started dating another man and seemed happy, with plans to remarry. Robert was jealous of her, but at the time his friend did not believe he would do it. Robert later confessed to this friend that he had deliberately drowned their children as an act of revenge against his ex-wife. He was released on $200,000 bail before the trial because the judge considered the incident an accident and decided that he did not pose a threat to society. As part of his bail conditions, Robert was required to stay home and wear a tracking bracelet. The trial began in August 2007. During the trial, Robert's ex-wife Cindy expressed her belief that he did not intentionally kill their children. She characterized him as a devoted family man. Cindy found it hard to comprehend why Robert would harm their children, even if he were upset with her. However, she acknowledged that Robert had been unhappy with her new relationship and had previously said he wouldn't let the children live with her new partner or pay alimony. Cindy firmly believed that the incident was an accident. She recalled suggesting to Robert that he spend Father's Day with the children. She sent her sons off at 3 p.m., and their father picked them up, with the expectation that they would return home by 7:30 p.m. Around 8 p.m., she was shocked to find a soaked and frantic Robert at her door. After learning about the accident, Cindy's new partner, Stephen, quickly drove to the lake. He began diving in, searching for the car to rescue the children. Robert, accompanied by his lawyer, maintained that it was an accident. A local resident who was near the lake that day testified at the trial about Robert's behavior while he waited for the boys to be rescued. The witness noted that Robert seemed more focused on finding a cigarette than on his children, which surprised him. When asked why he wasn't more worried about his children, Robert did not respond and did not attempt to dive into the water to save them. Another driver who stopped to help also provided testimony. He noted that Robert did not ask him to call for help but instead wanted a ride to see his wife. By that time, Robert appeared to have accepted that the children were dead. The driver was confused because Robert wanted to see his wife instead of seeking help for the children. Although confused, the driver took Robert with him and gave him a phone to call for help. However, Robert refused, saying that it was too late and the children were dead. The driver later felt that Robert might be mentally unstable. Regretting his decision to follow Robert's wishes, the driver called the emergency services himself, wishing he had done more to save the children. A nearby police officer commented on Robert's lack of emotion, saying that he did not act like a father who had just lost 3 sons. In contrast, the children's mother appeared very confused, pulling her hair, crying and begging for help, while Robert was barely responsive. Cindy and Stephen, her new partner, joined the rescuers to help, while Robert didn't mention his cough, which he claimed had led to his loss of control, until 11 days later. During the trial, the doctor who treated Robert confirmed that Robert was indeed ill. Robert was coughing a lot and felt weak and lethargic. However, the doctor believed that the cough would not have caused Robert to turn the wheel so suddenly. After the divorce, Robert suffered from depression, mental instability, and personality disorder. He regularly saw a psychiatrist. On the morning before the tragedy, Robert told the psychiatrist that he had forgotten to take his antidepressants. The prosecution presented evidence that there were no skid marks or brake marks on the road, and that the back door was locked and the headlights were off, which could not have happened accidentally. The prosecution argued that Robert had tried to kill the children out of revenge against Cindy, primarily because he wanted to avoid paying her child support. The jury found these arguments convincing, and on October 5, 2007, they found Robert Farquharson guilty. He was sentenced to the maximum sentence of 3 life terms without the possibility of parole. In sentencing, the judge stated that Robert's actions had destroyed his entire family in revenge against Cindy and had also ruined his own life. Cindy, the children's mother, fainted after hearing the verdict and had to be rushed to the hospital because she did not expect the verdict to be like that. After the trial, she was very confused by the experts' opinions. That Robert had intentionally killed the children to get revenge on her. Cindy wanted to visit Robert in prison to understand the truth of what happened, but he refused to see her. Cindy sued her ex-husband, Robert, for pain and suffering as well as for the death of their 3 children. As a result, Robert was found guilty and ordered to pay her 225,000 Australian dollars. Later, it was discovered that the friend who testified against Robert during the trial had a history of violence and multiple convictions, which raised doubts about his credibility. With this new information, Robert and his lawyer filed an appeal, which was accepted on December 17, 2009. Robert was released on bail of 200,000 Australian dollars on December 21. Due to errors in the judicial process, a new trial was scheduled, beginning in May 2010. During the trial, a new witness testified, a woman who said she was driving behind Robert's car near the lake. She described the car as moving at a normal speed before it suddenly swerved to the right multiple times. Inside the car, she saw 3 children, and she noted that Robert was purposefully guiding his boys toward the water. He did not attempt to brake or change direction. Most notably, Robert remained calm and did not cough while sitting behind the wheel. The woman drove away quickly and did not realize that Robert had driven his car into the water. She thought he would simply stop by the lake. She later learned about the tragedy on TV the next day and came to understand that Robert had intentionally drowned his children. She had been unable to contact anyone sooner because she was receiving cancer treatment in the hospital. After witness testimony, Cindy developed a deep hatred for Robert, believing that he had intentionally taken the lives of her children. She was convinced of his guilt and asked the court to sentence him to life in prison, ensuring that he would spend the rest of his life in prison. Cindy had Robert's name removed from her children's records and from their gravestones. On July 22, 2010, the jury again found Robert guilty and he was sentenced to life in prison, with the possibility of parole. In 2010, Cindy married Stephen and they had 2 sons together. Sadly, Cindy passed away in May 2022 at the age of 50. Robert remains in prison, serving his sentence. Welcome back, mystery lovers. Today's case is going to keep you on the edge of your seat. The case of Christy Johnson. Christy Johnson was born in 1981 in Santa Clara, California, USA. She lives with her parents, Teresa and Kirk Johnson. When she was a child, her family moved from California to Saugatuck, a small town in Michigan. Saugatuck is a quiet town with less than 1,000 residents. It seems like a safe place to build a happy future with an extremely low crime rate. The locals feel so safe that they don't even lock their doors. It's a tight-knit community where everyone knows each other. Christy has an older brother named Derek, who is just a few years older than her. Her parents later divorced, but they maintained a good relationship for the sake of their children. Christy and Derek took turns living with their father and mother as required by the custody agreement. As a result, Christy quickly took on household responsibilities. From the age of 12, she began helping her mother, including managing the family budget. Christy sought part-time work to gain independence and avoid having to ask her parents for money. Eventually, her brother Derek enlisted in the army and decided to pursue a career in the military. During this time, Christy was in high school. Christy is fun and interesting to talk to. She leads an active and healthy lifestyle. Christy enjoys sailing, surfing, and anything water-related. She also enjoys theater and is a member of a small acting club. In the winter, she works as a waitress at a local cafe. Her pleasant, polite, and sociable attitude attracts many customers. Christy grew increasingly eager to leave the small town of Saugatuck, as the peaceful environment there did not suit her. In 1999, she graduated from high school, finally having the freedom to begin forging her own path to success. After some reflection, Christy decided to begin her journey of exploring different cities, exploring different jobs. Initially, she moved in with her grandmother in the small resort town of Santa Maria. Population 100,000. Finding a job to support herself was important. She then worked as a systems administrator for an electric utility company and continued her education. Christy decided to enroll in the University of California, a 40-minute drive from her grandmother's home. Although she used her savings to buy a car, the daily commute proved difficult, so Christy looked for work closer to her studies. Christy got a part-time job with a film crew. Her experience working in a theater group helped her adjust to her new work environment. She was hired as an assistant on the set of a horror film, where she met people from Hollywood. She interacted with world-famous actors and directors and felt extremely happy. Christy was fascinated by the world of cinema. Inspired by this experience, she wanted to get more involved in the industry, so she enrolled in professional makeup courses taught by Hollywood makeup artists. After mastering these skills, she considered becoming a makeup artist on set and planned to move to Los Angeles. She eventually moved to Los Angeles, where many famous film studios were located. When she arrived in her new environment, she avoided parties and social gatherings. She had a boyfriend whom she met a few years ago. They kept in touch despite the distance, and later he moved in with her. They rented an apartment together in Los Angeles. Since 2002, they have been struggling financially. Although it was not easy, Christy persevered in finding a stable job. Christy still had not found a steady job, so most of her income came from her boyfriend. Then their relationship deteriorated. Christy confided in her mother that their arguments often ended with him physically abusing her. She felt trapped in a toxic relationship. Her mother began looking for a new place for Christy to live. Eventually, Christy left her boyfriend, moved into a small apartment, and continued her studies. Her father supported her financially, hoping that she would find her way. By November 2002, Christy had found a job at a cell phone company. Although the job did not match her career goals or salary expectations, her mother then found her a new home close to her workplace in Santa Monica, a town near Los Angeles, where Christy shared a living space with 2 other girls. During this time, she transferred to Santa Monica College. Christy's Hollywood dreams did not come true. Her relationship ended and she started over. Despite this, she remained determined and continued to pursue her dreams. On February 15, 2003, Christy was scheduled to attend a party. Before that, she went to a shopping mall and had a long phone conversation with her mother about her future plans. This turned out to be the last time the family heard from her. The next day, February 16th, Christy's mother tried to call her daughter. At first, she was not worried, thinking that Christy might be resting or working and unable to answer the phone. However, when she received no response, she became more worried. By 9 a.m. the next day, Christy's mother contacted her workplace, where Christy was known to be punctual and reliable. Christy's manager confirmed that she had not shown up for work. A coworker told her that Christy was supposed to be attending a party. Christy's mother searched her daughter's social media but found no useful information about the event. Although Christy shared many photos of her life, she had not posted anything about the party. The mother also reviewed Christy's bank account transactions and noticed that there had been no activity since Christy stopped communicating. Worried, she called all the hospitals, but Christy was not admitted to any of them. On February 17th, her mother reported Christy missing to the Santa Monica Police Department. Police investigated whether she had been involved in any traffic accidents but found no clues. Friends who lived with her reported that they had not heard anything unusual after she went missing. Police contacted her ex-boyfriend, Todd. They considered the possibility that he might have harmed her, but he denied seeing her. Neighbors said they saw Christy on Saturday, February 15th, on her way to a party, but they did not know who she was with or where the party was. The police had to get at least something connected with the Christy, so her car, a white oil Mint, was sought. While interviewing her mother, they learned more about her ex-boyfriend, Todd, and her new boyfriend, Lucas. However, Christy's mother had very little information about Lucas. She didn't even know his last name, which complicated the investigation. It had been 48 hours since Christy was reported missing, a critical time frame in which police feared she might not be alive. They began checking cell phone records and discovered that Christy's last outgoing call was made at 5:34 p.m. on February 15th. She had called the helpline at 411, which could indicate that she was in distress and seeking assistance with an address or phone number. The conversation lasted about 3 minutes, suggesting it was important to the investigation, but specific details could not be obtained because the calls were not recorded. After that call, Christy's phone battery died, with her last known location being near Ventura Boulevard. Police reached out to the media to assist in the investigation. News outlets quickly began to cover Christy's disappearance. Police searched Christy's apartment for clues and discovered a receipt from a lingerie store dated February 15th, the day she went missing. They also learned that Christy had been in contact with Todd, her ex, despite his violent tendencies. She last visited him on February 7th. Police discovered a key clue while reviewing Christy's emails. On February 13th, Christy sent a message to the event manager expressing her intention to purchase tickets. However, she was told that all the tickets were sold out and was placed on a special waiting list. This tactic is often used by event organizers to deceive customers and then sell tickets at a higher price. The police then found Christy's new boyfriend, Lucas, and interviewed him. He reported that he last saw Christy on February 14th, the day she went missing. They spent the evening watching a movie before saying goodbye. He passed a polygraph test, had a solid alibi, and did not raise any suspicions with the police. Next, police spoke with Christy's ex-boyfriend, Todd, who also had an alibi. He was confirmed by multiple witnesses to be out of town. Police focused in particular on the party Christy attended when she went missing. Police contacted the organizers of the event and were surprised to learn that Christy had never purchased a ticket and did not attend the party. This raised questions about where she might have gone instead. To reconstruct the timeline of that evening, police reviewed transactions made with Christy's bank card. This investigation revealed the stores she had visited that day. Police then searched for surveillance camera footage that might provide details or clues about her activities. The police then received a call from a woman named Susan Murphy, who reported seeing a suspicious person. She recounted her encounter with a man named Victor Lawrence Paleologos at a store, where Victor said he was a representative of a film company that was casting for a new James Bond film. Susan said he asked her to audition for the role of Bond's girlfriend, complimented her appearance, and tried to convince her to join. Feeling uncomfortable with him, she eventually turned down his offer. To ensure her safety, her husband, a former police officer, went to see Victor. He spoke to Victor to try to learn more about his intentions, but Victor fled without providing any useful information. Susan later investigated Victor further and discovered that he had lied, that he had absolutely nothing to do with the film. Victor likely fabricated this information to meet beautiful women, although his motives remain unclear. Although Susan is safe, Victor is still at large and could pose a danger, making it important to verify this information and locate him. They then decide to interview employees in the store. Police described Victor, who had a reputation for harassing attractive women, in these conversations. At one store, a clerk reported seeing a person matching the police description but was unable to provide any useful details. The search for Christie intensified. Police deployed dogs and volunteers to the area where she was last seen. Volunteers searched for Christie and her car. Although police had received multiple reports of sightings of a similar vehicle, those reports turned out to be false. On February 24th, police received a crucial tip. They located her car, a white Mazda Miata, in a parking lot near the shopping center where Christie had been shopping. A forensic scientist then arrived to conduct a thorough examination of the car, collecting fingerprints and other evidence found inside. A water bottle was found in the back seat, and Christie's cell phone was found in the front seat. The police encountered an unexpected revelation when they spoke with the parking attendant. He recalled an incident involving the car in question. The vehicle arrived at 17:45, but it was already reserved for another customer. A man exited the car, and when informed of the reservation, he reacted aggressively. He threw the car keys at the attendant and left without further explanation. Sadly, there were no surveillance cameras in the parking area, making it impossible to identify the driver. With no leads, the police returned to examining the Christie's purchases from that day and were taken aback. On the day she disappeared, Christie had bought a set of clothes that matched the description Susan had given when Victor asked her to prepare for the casting. He instructed Susan to buy the shortest black miniskirt possible, along with a white shirt, stockings, and shoes. All these items were purchased using Christie's bank card, leading the police to suspect that this was not merely a coincidence. This suggests that Christie may have fallen for a scammer, similar to what happened to Susan, although fortunately she was with her husband. Unfortunately, there was no news of Victor, and the police had no way to contact him. Police once again spoke to Christie's housemates. They recalled that Christie had indeed attended and tried out the role, although they could not recall the specifics. During the discussion, they noted that it was related to James Bond. They mentioned that Christie was very excited about the event, and she had gone to get ready in costume. Christie was worried about being late for the tryout the role, which was scheduled for 5:30 p.m. Police reviewed the camera footage several times to locate Victor, and unfortunately, the footage was of poor quality and they were unable to identify his facial features. However, with the help of witness statements, police were able to create a composite sketch of the prime suspect in Christie's disappearance. By February 26th, the sketch was complete. An experienced police officer familiar with the case identified the suspect as Victor Lawrence Paleologus, who had just been paroled on January 20, 2003, after serving a sentence for sexual assault. Victor often used tactics like promising casting calls for parties to lure his victims. This approach worked for him, especially near the Walk of Fame, where many young women who come to Los Angeles to dream of Hollywood make them easy targets for predators. Victor first received a suspended sentence for attacking a girl. In 1998, he attempted to rape Katie Devina, presenting himself as Brian, a film producer. He received a very short sentence for this crime. There are also indications that Victor had embezzled money from a company before. In addition, several other women came forward as victims of his attempted rapes, but the police reports did not result in any consequences for him due to lack of evidence. He once attacked his ex-girlfriend in her own home. Although this was also an unsuccessful sexual assault, he stole money and jewelry from her apartment. This crime was largely overlooked, resulting in only a suspended sentence. He then seduced a girl named Heather, as he had done with others, and convinced her to dress in a way that pleased him. He then attempted to tie her up and rape her, but she escaped. Victor was sentenced to 2 years in prison and was paroled on January 20, 2003, just 3 weeks before Christie went missing. After his release, Victor quickly returned to his previous criminal activities. By the time police began searching for him, he had been arrested for stealing a BMW X5 in Beverly Hills and attempting to sell it using false documents. During a search of his wallet after his arrest, officers discovered a wallet containing several stolen IDs, credit cards, and other documents. The police showed Susan a photo of Victor. At the police station, Susan quickly recognized Victor in a lineup, despite his attempts to disguise himself by hunching over, changing the shape of his arms, and changing his hairstyle. Susan's husband, who had tried to stop the attacker, also confirmed Victor's identity. However, a security guard at the parking lot where Christie's car was found could not recognize Victor, as he had only seen him briefly in the darkness. Victor denied any involvement in Christie's disappearance and insisted on having a lawyer present before speaking to the police. Victor expressed concern that the authorities might be trying to frame him because he was on parole. Police kept collecting evidence against Victor, and a new witness soon came forward. A realtor had been working with Victor for several weeks and noticed his unusual behavior while looking for homes priced up to $700,000. They visited multiple properties each day, and during one visit, they experienced an incident involving lost documents and keys that suggested Victor might be involved in theft. After the realtor saw Victor's photo in a police report, they recognized him as a possible suspect. The realtor recalled Victor behaving nervously during their last meeting, which happened around the time Christie disappeared. Additionally, while viewing a house, Victor tested the soundproofing by shouting from the bathroom, raising police suspicions that he was scouting for a potential crime scene. The police investigated all the homes Victor had visited, paying special attention to one where Christie's phone last registered a signal. They searched for evidence or Christie's body but found nothing. However, when they searched Victor's apartment, they discovered unsettling photos of women in revealing clothing. After 12 days of investigation, Christie's family remained hopeful for her safe return, while Victor was uncooperative, denying any involvement but acknowledging that he had seen Christie before she disappeared. Victor was born in 1962 in Pennsylvania as the youngest of 5 brothers in a family. He attended college, earned a bachelor's degree, and then moved to Los Angeles for graduate studies. He was married from 1990 to 1993, during which time there were allegations that he attempted to poison his wife after she reported his business failures. Feeling aggrieved by the world, Victor turned to crime, and his obsession with attractive women led him to violence. On the night Christie went missing, Victor and his lawyer provided an alibi backed by witnesses, stating he was at a restaurant with a friend. Nevertheless, police believed he might have had enough time to abduct another victim despite his alibi. On March 1st, a new witness contacted the police, saying that he had seen Christie on February 15th. She was near his house, asking for directions to a mansion that looked like a castle. His wife overheard the conversation and gave Christie directions to the location. Christie later called the information desk, confirming that she was indeed looking for a house that looked like a castle, which also fit the type of house Victor was considering because of its soundproofing. While the police were following up on this lead, something else important happened. On March 3, 2003, 4 teenagers hiking in the Hollywood Hills discovered something unusual about 100 meters below them. At first, they thought it was a mannequin, but upon closer inspection, they realized it was a human body. Without cell phones, they rushed to report their discovery to a woman walking her dog on the road. The woman then went to where the teenagers pointed. She saw the victim's legs were tied and covered with a blue cloth. The woman was wearing a gray hoodie, her hands were tied behind her back, and there was a hair tie around her right wrist. She immediately called the police. Rescue workers and police quickly arrived at the scene and, after much effort, were able to remove the body from the Hollywood Hills. The medical examiner identified the body as that of Christie Johnson. Police notified Christie's parents of the tragic news, and they were devastated by the loss. Christie's body had extensive bruising and abrasions. The condition of the body was poor due to significant decomposition from exposure to heat for several days, along with a rainy day. Her face was particularly unrecognizable due to the severity of her injuries. Christie's ear was torn, and there were significant bruises on her head and neck. These injuries were consistent with blunt force trauma and strangulation, which were determined to be the cause of death. Police believed that Victor was responsible for the murder, but they needed to prove that he did not have an alibi for the time of Christie's murder. To do this, police spoke to his friend Joy, who mentioned having dinner with him that night. Upon questioning, Joy stated that they met much later than the time of Christie's death. Joy stated that Victor arrived late for their meeting, around midnight, even though they had planned to meet earlier. Victor had scratches on his face, which he attributed to minor injuries sustained while moving. The police have pieced together the events leading up to Christie's disappearance. The man, who frequently targeted victims at a shopping center, approached Christie, a young girl he found attractive. He claimed to be working in the film industry and invited her to audition for the role of James Bond's love interest, presenting himself convincingly. Flattering Christie, he insisted she was perfect for the part, playing on her ambitions and making it hard for her to refuse. He arranged to meet her at a property he was visiting with a realtor, claiming it was for the audition. Christie prepared for the meeting and wore the outfit he requested. When they met, she became the target of his attack. She tried to scratch his face to fight back. Victor overpowered her, raped her, and killed her to prevent her from reporting the crime. He first struck her on the head and then strangled her, believing she was dead before leaving her body in the Hollywood Hills. Tragically, the blunt force trauma and strangulation didn't lead to her death immediately. She lost consciousness, and he assumed she was dead. When he discarded her onto the rocks from a significant height, she sustained even more injuries. Finally, she regained consciousness and died slowly. On May 12, 2003, the district attorney charged Victor with kidnapping, rape, and first-degree murder. The defense was well prepared to fight for his freedom, as there was no direct evidence linking him to the crime. The prosecution faced a challenging task, relying on compelling arguments from forensic experts. The defense challenged the estimated time of death, citing the presence of insects on the body. However, the similarities between this case and previous attacks attributed to the same criminal. Preparations for the trial took time, and Victor finally appeared in court in July 2006. The defense argued that the prosecutor's office had little to no direct evidence linking Victor to the victim, as there was no DNA, fingerprints, or surveillance camera footage. This lack of evidence was attributed to the fact that the body was discovered 2 weeks after the disappearance, by which time it had decomposed significantly, destroying any potential evidence. However, the prosecution gained the advantage of testifying about who had accused Victor of harassment. They portrayed him as a skilled manipulator. It was clear to everyone that the victor was responsible for Christie's death. To avoid the death penalty, he decided to negotiate with the prosecution and plead guilty to a lesser charge. The only remaining step was for Christie's family to accept this deal. By that point, the trial had been ongoing for 3 weeks with little progress, and its outcome was uncertain. After enduring so much pain, the victim's family was willing to compromise to ensure justice was served. However, on the day the verdict was announced, the victor submitted an 11-page request to the judge, asking to withdraw his guilty plea. Fortunately, it was too late for him to change his mind. Victor Lawrence Paleologus was found guilty on all charges and sentenced to life in prison, with the possibility of parole after 25 years. Hello again, true crime fans. We've got another mysterious case to explore. The case of Melinda Pliskovic. Melinda Pliskovic was born on January 5, 1968, in Strongsville, Ohio, a city near Cleveland with a population of about 45,000. This city is always quiet, calm, and safe. Residents often left their doors unlocked. At 24, Melinda married Bruce, and together they had 3 children, 2 daughters, Megan and Anna, and the younger son, Kyle, who has Down syndrome. The children give meaning to her life, and she devoted a lot of time to Kyle, striving to give the boy a fulfilling and happy life. The family lived in a spacious, cozy 2-story house and a large basement. Melinda worked as a math teacher and also coached the school football team. She leading an active and fulfilling life, while Bruce worked as an accountant. In 2015, their 19-year-old daughter Megan moved to another city to attend college. The eldest daughter, Anna, who was 20, had been engaged to her high school boyfriend, Jeffrey Scullin, also 20. Anna worked as a waitress, while Jeffrey was a technician who serviced heating systems. As they were planning their wedding, Anna discovered she was pregnant, which brought joy to the whole family. Anna's parents suggested that Jeffrey move in with them because the couple couldn't afford their own place. Anna and Jeffrey happily agreed because they needed both material and emotional support, along with help in taking care of the baby. Jeffrey moved in with Anna's family in June 2016, just before their daughter was born. The baby was born on July 3rd and was named Aurora. Everything went well. Melinda helped Anna take care of Aurora, helping the young couple save money for their wedding and buying a house. At that time, the household consisted of 6 people: Melinda, Bruce, Kyle, Anna, Jeffrey, and baby Aurora. Shortly after that, something unusual occurred. Melinda, Bruce, and Kyle went to visit relatives, leaving Anna and Jeffrey home with Aurora. In the evening, they noticed 4 people in their backyard, talking, smoking, and watching the house. This was alarming, as nothing like this had happened before. Jeffrey, feeling scared, called the police, but by the time they arrived, the strangers had already left. The officer checked the yard but found nothing suspicious and noted that there were no cameras around the house. The police left, advising them to call again if the strangers returned. In the days following the incident, Anna and Jeffrey were very cautious, frequently looking out the windows and ensuring no one was around. However, no one else came, and eventually, they forgot about the incident. In November 2016, Anna was home with Aurora, and she heard someone trying to open the back door. She thought it was Jeffrey or her parents had returned and forgotten the key. She picked up her daughter and went to the back door. As she approached the large glass sliding doors, she saw the figure of an unfamiliar man. It was clear he was neither her father nor Jeffrey. Terrified, she froze, unsure of what to do next. The man noticed Anna through the glass, looked at her, and then left. Panicking, she grabbed her phone, ran upstairs to her room, locked the door, and called the police. When the police arrived, the man was gone. The officer searched the area but found no signs of him. Anna couldn't describe the man because it was dark and she could only see his silhouette. In January 2017, Anna went back to work full-time at the restaurant. Around the same time, a troubling incident occurred, involving some strangers. Someone broke into Bruce's car and stole a laptop. The family believes that the strangers were following them, and this time, the strangers left no trace. A few months later, Anna, Jeffrey, and Aurora were home one evening, preparing for bed. She looked out the window and noticed 3 strangers standing in their backyard, watching them. She became very frightened and started to panic. She called the police, while Jeffrey, seeing the strangers, felt he needed to confront them. He grabbed a flashlight and went outside. When the strangers saw him, they ran away. The police arrived shortly after but found nothing. Shortly after this incident, another incident occurred. One evening, Anna was at home with Aurora, while Melinda was upstairs. Suddenly, she heard a noise at the back door. Someone was trying to open it again. She quietly approached the door to see who it was. This time, she saw two men dressed in dark clothing and hooded jackets, which obscured their faces. Unable to see them clearly, so she decided to scare them off. She screamed loudly, and it worked. The men were startled and ran away. Melinda, hearing her scream, rushed downstairs in a panic, shouting that the strangers had returned. Then, she called the police, who came to inspect the house and surrounding area, but found nothing suspicious. The entire family lived in fear, confused about why they were being watched and what the strangers wanted. Everyone was worried that they might be attacked. In September 2017, Melinda realized that her car's spare key was missing. It had always been kept in the same spot, and she was certain she hadn't misplaced it. The family feared that strangers had broken into their house and taken the keys. As time went on, they learned the reason behind the theft. The car's alarm frequently went off at night, and someone started the car and drove away. Bruce also discovered that nails had been placed in the tires of his car. Additionally, the family noticed that money was disappearing from their home. They called the police 3 times, but each time, the officers were unable to find any fingerprints or evidence of a break-in, as the intruders left no traces. In October 2017, another unsettling incident occurred. Melinda and Jeffrey were at home with Aurora when they heard someone trying to open the front door. Jeffrey walked the dog to the door to see what was going on. He saw a large man in dark clothing with his face covered standing outside. The dog barked, which frightened the intruder, causing him to flee. Melinda called the police again, but they found nothing. On October 23, 2017, Jeffrey, Aurora, and Bruce went to the restaurant where Anna worked and they had dinner together. Melinda and Kyle stayed home, and something terrible happened that night. After dinner, Jeffrey, along with Aurora and Bruce, headed home in separate cars. Melinda's car was parked outside, the front door was closed, and the dog was outside. Bruce knocked on the house door, but nobody answered. He knocked again, and his son Kyle eventually opened the door. Kyle is depressed and doesn't say anything, so he can't tell Bruce what happened. Bruce felt something was wrong with Melinda. As he entered the kitchen and discovered she lying face down on the floor, covered in blood. Jeffrey held Aurora as he entered the kitchen. When he saw Melinda with gunshot wounds to her head, Bruce screamed in shock, took Aurora from Jeffrey, and urged his son Kyle to come outside with him. Jeffrey quickly rushed into the street and called 911, telling them they had just come from a restaurant and found Melinda's body in the kitchen. Later, Bruce also called 911, he feeling frustrated that the police had not responded to their previous reports about strangers watching them and trying to break into their home, and now Melinda was dead. The police and ambulance quickly arrived at the scene, they finding 49-year-old Melinda deceased. They began a thorough investigation of the house and surrounding area, then, they found a clue. In Jeffrey's car, they found a gun and a bloody knife, concealed under his clothes in the back seat. He couldn't explain where they came from, so both the knife and the gun were sent for analysis. Additionally, blood was discovered on the car door and on his sweatpants. Immediately after that, Jeffrey was taken in for questioning. He stated that he had spoken to Melinda the day before her death, when she expressed a desire to go to a restaurant with him and take Kyle along. She even asked Jeffrey to contact his mother to arrange a meeting. However, then due to a leg injury, so she changed her mind and decided to stay home with Kyle. The following afternoon, he visited Melinda. She had just returned from a doctor's appointment and seemed fine. He then went to his aunt's house, and later that evening, Melinda was found dead. When the police contacted his aunt, she denied having seen him that day. During questioning, Bruce, Melinda's husband, mentioned that in the afternoon, she sent him an unusual message, saying to meet at 4:30 in a beer restaurant. He found it odd because they typically discussed their plans over the phone beforehand. Before, she had never communicated to him in that manner, but at the time, he didn't think much of it. He just replied that he agreed, and then he went to the restaurant. Now, he realizes that the message had been written by someone else. Bruce arrived at the beer restaurant but didn't find Melinda there. After having a drink, he decided to go to the gym for a workout. While he was there, Jeffrey called to remind him about a meeting at the restaurant where Anna worked. Anna also called and asked if he would come. Bruce got to the restaurant after 7 p.m. By then, Jeffrey was already eating and drinking beer, but Melinda was still missing. Bruce asked Jeffrey where Melinda and Kyle were, but Jeffrey said they had no idea. Melinda's phone was off, which was unusual. They quickly finished their meal and prepared to go home. However, Jeffrey asked to stop at a gas station first and requested that Bruce accompany him to keep an eye on the baby, Aurora. They returned home and discovered Melinda's body. Investigators believe that Jeffrey killed Melinda before going to the restaurant and arranged the meeting there to create an alibi for himself. The autopsy revealed that Melinda had suffered 35 stab wounds to her back and 3 gunshot wounds to her head. Jeffrey and Anna were engaged and living with Anna's parents. Her parents have supported them in everything and are planning to buy a house for them, with the money have saved. Although Jeffrey and Melinda occasionally had arguments, which is common in relationships between a son-in-law and wife's mother, but they didn't have any serious arguments. So what could Jeffrey's motives be? He was facing financial difficulties, he had quit his job and was only working part-time. With the wedding scheduled for October 28, 2017, just 5 days away, he didn't have enough money to pay for it. His credit card was locked, so he couldn't make any payments. Melinda was in charge of organizing the wedding and was responsible for paying the restaurant and other expenses. This situation could have led to an argument between them. He may be worried that she will tell Anna about his financial problems, causing the wedding to go off. Or maybe she found out something else about him. Jeffrey's acquaintances mentioned that he always hated Melinda. It also seemed odd that Jeffrey didn't introduce his parents to her family. Although they wanted to arrange a meeting, but he kept scheduling and then canceling it, claiming his parents were unavailable. However, when researchers interviewed Jeffrey's parents, they revealed they had no knowledge of these meetings, as Jeffrey never invited them. Despite all this, Melinda's relatives still do not believe he is guilty. They were convinced that the murder was committed by some strangers who had been observing the house. Strangely enough, these strangers began observing the house after Jeffrey had moved in. It is also worth noting that no other homes were followed by these strangers and the police never identified them. DNA tests confirmed that the blood on the knife and door belonged to Melinda, and Jeffrey's DNA was found on the knife handle. Forensic examination of the gun showed that the gun found in Jeffrey's car was involved in her shooting. Subsequently, Jeffrey was arrested and charged with Melinda's murder. He failed a lie detector test and later confessed to the crime during further questioning. He said that when he arrived at the house, Melinda was furious. She pointed a gun at him, screamed, and threatened him. He grabbed the gun from her and shot her 3 times, claiming he didn't remember stabbing her 35 more times. People wonder why Jeffrey continues to attack Melinda, even though there is no longer any threat to his life. No one believed his story. After Jeffrey's arrest, the strangers watching their house suddenly disappeared and everything stopped. Investigators believe that all of the incidents involving strangers were planned by Jeffrey. They may have been his friends or he hired someone to intimidate Melinda's family for a year and a half. It seemed like Jeffrey was trying to mislead the police and derail the investigation. It was also odd that Melinda's family, despite being wealthy, did they not install CCTV cameras. It turned out Jeffrey opposed these security measures, including tracking apps, possibly fearing exposure. Everything pointed back to Jeffrey. He arranged the dinner at the restaurant, delayed leaving, and then took Bruce to the gas station. Strangers began watching the house after Jeffrey moved in and vanished after his arrest. Melinda's funeral was held on October 28, 2017, which was supposed to be the wedding day for Anna and Jeffrey, but the wedding did not happen. At the funeral, relatives, friends, neighbors, students, and colleagues remembered Melinda as a caring wife, a loving grandmother, and a beloved teacher who dedicated 27 years of service to the school. She was also a coach and mentor. Jeffrey attended the funeral alone with other relatives. Kyle, who witnessed his mother's murder, never accepted that she was gone and continues to wait for her return. In addition to the murder charge, Jeffrey was also charged with assault, falsifying evidence, giving false testimony, and endangering children. During the trial, the prosecution argued that the murder was not self-defense. Jeffrey had meticulously planned it and staged break-ins to mislead the investigation. Jeffrey Scullin did not plead guilty but also did not contest the charges. Melinda's family requested that he be denied parole to prevent him from harming anyone else. Jeffrey was found guilty and sentenced to life imprisonment, with the possibility of parole in 33 years. Hello, crime enthusiasts, are you ready for another chilling investigation? The case of Jesse McFadden. At that time, Holly was 35 years old. She had 3 children from a previous relationship: 13 years old Tiffany, 17 years old Raleigh Allen, and 15 years old Michael Mayo. Each child had a different father. Holly was married to Joe, a prominent man, for 13 years. He was a wonderful father and stepfather to all the children. Even after their divorce, Joe continued to care for the children as if they were his own. He also wanted to adopt Raleigh and Michael, but he was never able to do so. Holly's new husband, Jesse McFadden, was not as good a father as Joe. At 39 years old, Jesse had a troubling past, including a criminal record. In 2003, he was charged with assaulting and raping a 15-year-old girl at knife point. He received a 20-year prison sentence, but got out 3 years early, in October 2020, after serving 17 years. Despite his history, Jesse was not placed on the sex offender list or the list of potentially dangerous criminals, which the authorities should have done. As a result, he kept his past from Holly and portrayed himself as a model stepfather. He attended her children's sports games and engaging with the family. His past remained hidden, and he was seen as a good person. He gives the impression of being a kind man and regularly attended the local church. Holly had no idea that she was getting involved with a very dangerous man. Jesse was about to go crazy and commit a heinous crime. In 1916, while serving time in prison, he had his mobile phone confiscated. On the phone, authorities found photos, videos, and text messages involving a 16-year-old girl named Caitlin. Her grandfather accidentally discovered this sensitive content and reported it to the police, thereby leading to an investigation in the prison. At that time, Jesse was considered a model prisoner, participating in almost all activities, which under state law, made him eligible for parole after serving 85% of his sentence. Despite meeting all the conditions for parole, Jesse lost this privilege due to the incident involving Caitlin. However, he eventually managed to resolve the situation and secure his parole. After being released from prison, Jesse followed the rule of reporting to the sheriff's office every 90 days. He did this so discreetly that Holly, the children, and neighbors were unaware of his situation. Holly, his wife, was unaware that he was forbidden from being in places with children, such as schools and sports matches. Meanwhile, Jesse was still under investigation and awaiting trial for explicit photos of Caitlin he had corresponded with while in prison. The trial was delayed until 2023 due to a series of unfortunate incidents. The prosecutor handling the case was suspended, and Jesse's lawyer passed away. On May 1, 2023, as the trial is about to begin, a terrible tragedy occurred the day before. On the morning of May 1, 2023, the parents of Ivy and Brittany became worried. Ivy and Brittany are Tiffany's friends. They were best friends and often spent time together, including sleeping together overnight. Everyone expected Ivy and Brittany to return home after a sleepover on April 29, but both did not return. Initially, their parents weren't concerned, as the girls frequently stayed overnight at each other's houses, and they assumed their daughters were spending another night with Tiffany. However, by the morning of May 1, they still cannot contact their children. Ivy and Brittany did not respond to their parents' calls or text messages and could not be located using the Life 360 app. Ivy and Brittany's parents also couldn't contact Tiffany and her family to confirm if their daughters were there. Because they were increasingly worried, they reported Ivy and Brittany missing to the police that same day. The police issued a missing persons alert for Ivy and Brittany and immediately began an investigation. Based on information from the girls' parents, they decided to check Jesse's house, where Ivy and Brittany were before they went missing. Upon arrival, the police officers knocked on the door but received no response. Looking through the windows, they saw something unusual inside, so they decided to enter the house. The scene inside the house horrified all the police. Inside, they found 7 mutilated bodies. Some people can only be identified through forensic examination. Among them was Jesse himself, his wife Holly, Riley, Michael, Tiffany, Brittany, and Ivy. All the victims were shot in the head with a 9mm pistol. Bodies were scattered throughout the house. The detectives determined that the murderer was a former criminal named Jesse McFadden. He attacked all the victims and then ended his life. The probable reason was that on May 1, he was supposed to start a trial that had been postponed for a long time. It is presumed that he did it because he could no longer hide his dark criminal past. Perhaps his wife, Holly, discovered it, or he was worried that she would soon find out, so he killed his entire family to take his secret to the grave. After the officers reviewed Jesse's cell phone, they were able to clarify the motive. On April 30th, he contacted Caitlin, a girl he had been messaging from prison, using a fake account under the name Holly. He accused her of not withdrawing the charges against him, which he claimed was destroying his well-established life. He explained that after being released 2 years ago, he had rebuilt his life. He found a high-paying marketing job, started a family. He tried to convince Caitlin to recant her testimony to stop the trial. He argued that he had a good family and promising future. He sent several angry messages, asserting that he would never return to prison, regardless of the cost. The police concluded that he was enraged because he couldn't control his accuser, Caitlin. Detectives contacted Crystal Strong, a 36-year-old woman who was Jesse's first victim. In 2002, when she was only 15, Jesse attacked her with a knife. She was shocked to hear that he might be released from prison, believing he should remain behind bars forever. Crystal learns that the man who brutally sexually assaulted her has been pardoned. Despite the decision being made, but she still asked Oklahoma authorities to prevent his release because she believed he was dangerous in nature. At that time, she feared for her safety. After the attack, she detailed her ordeal to the police. Jesse, then 19 and dating her friend, kidnapped her from her home while she was alone. He took her to a secluded house in his pickup truck, where he chained her to a bed and brutally raped her. despite her pleas for him to stop and release her, but he threatened her with a knife and continued his assault. Fortunately, he didn't kill her. Jesse instructed Crystals to wash off the evidence and clean her clothes. She agreed but instead used the opportunity to escape through the back door. She was crying and ran about half a kilometer to a neighbor's house to call the police. Following this, she underwent an extensive rehabilitation process, which helped her return to a normal life. She relocated to Kansas, where she hid for years due to the trauma of the brutal attack. Although doctors initially believed she couldn't have children, thankfully, their predictions were wrong. Crystal now has 4 children, which she views as a miracle. Crystal is confused that the police released Jesse, a dangerous criminal, too soon, even though she warned that he could not be reformed. It is also confusing why he was freed early despite being intoxicated. She believes the legal system has failed them, especially when he murdered 6 people in a brutal and painful manner. The victims' families also expressed their anger over Jesse's early release. It's hard to imagine how this cruel person managed to pretend to be a loving husband, a respectable neighbor, and a caring stepfather. None of his close friends suspect his horrific past. Although he regularly interacted with various people since December 2020, they were all shocked when the truth emerged. Ivy and Brittany's parents remember that their daughter and Tiffany were very close and often visited each other's homes. Ivy and Brittany's parents were familiar with Jesse and Holly and communicated with them regularly. They did not suspect Jesse, although he occasionally appeared strange and withdrawn. He had the odd habit of controlling Holly's and the children's movements, but they did not think much of it. Ivy and Brittany, who frequently stayed overnight at their homes, never mentioned anything negative about Jesse or his behavior. Ivy and Brittany never showed signs of bruises or injuries that would suggest abuse. During the investigation, it was discovered that Holly learned about Jesse's criminal past shortly before the tragedy. Holly's ex-husband found out about Jesse's criminal record by checking the database. He informed Holly, but Jesse acted quickly to cover up his past. Jesse hired an actress to convince Holly that the sexual assault allegations against him were a misunderstanding. The actress admitted that after the breakup, she accused Jesse of violence out of anger. However, she retracted the accusation after realizing she was wrong. Holly, unfortunately, believed this lie. Inside the house, police discovered even more terrifying clues. They found that all of Jesse's victims had been subjected to severe torture. The house resembled a torture chamber, with several beds equipped with chains and locks to restrain people. In the kitchen, police found a chain with a lock and different torture devices. The shocking clues are not just that. Bottles of lubricant and other sexual items were strewn around the house. Illegal substances and their paraphernalia were found across all rooms, including candies laced with similar content. Police also discovered other strange-looking objects and various blood-stained items, such as clothes, rags, and bed linen. Altogether, these clues indicate that the crime was horrific, revealing that Jesse's victims endured brutal torture before being killed. Holly and her children were likely tortured for several days. On April 29th, when Ivy and Brittany did visit Tiffany, they fell into a trap. They were tortured. Then, as they struggled to escape, but Jesse captured and killed them. During a house search, several laptops and mobile phones belonging to Jesse were discovered. These devices contained photos and videos documenting his torture activities. There was so much shocking evidence that the police couldn't collect everything in one day. Additional evidence of the brutal torture was gathered a few days later. A second search was conducted, uncovering more hidden evidence in the house and revealing new details. Receipts were found for purchases of locks, chains, and other items, shows that Jesse had a plan to control the victims. In addition, 5 other cell phones were found, along with Jesse's notebook, which contained the names of his recent victims. Jesse noted that he wanted to start a new life and become a better person, but no matter how much he wanted to, he couldn't change the past. He also did not hesitate to impersonate Ivy. For example, Ivy's mother said the last message she received from her daughter was on Saturday, April 29th. They agreed that Ivy would come home on Sunday, April 30th. However, on the morning of April 30th, she received a text saying Ivy and her friends were going to another city and couldn't return that evening. Therefore, she didn't worry until the morning of May 1st. Although there were reasons for concern, she didn't notice them right away. The communication style of the message was unlike her daughter's. She thought it was because Ivy was in a hurry to get ready for the trip. Only now does she realize that her daughter was probably no longer alive at that point, and it was Jesse who was messaging her. The hardest thing for Holly's ex-husband, who is also the father of Riley, Michael, and Tiffany, is that he has been unable to provide any information to the police. Holly's ex-husband accused Jesse not only of the crimes he committed but also of his lies. He criminally tricked Holly by hiring an actress and hid his violent nature from friends, neighbors, and his new family for 2 years. The parents of Ivy and Brittany frequently visited their home, but no one suspected Jesse could be dangerous or doubted his identity. Detectives spoke with Jesse's former cellmate and were even more amazed at his deceptive skills. The cellmate, who spent almost every hour of the day with Jesse, only realized something was off after 6 months. Initially, Jesse seemed just like an eccentric and awkward individual. Nearly every conversation with him led to the topic of sex, revealing his obsession with it. At a medical facility, the cellmate saw Jesse stalking nurses. When he asked Jesse about his conviction, he got a vague response. Jesse mentioned a much lesser charge than what he had committed. The truth came out during an incident involving a contraband phone, which worsened the atmosphere in the cell. From then on, the cellmate was constantly tense, unable to sleep peacefully whenever Jesse was around. The tragic death of 6 people has caused strong public outrage. People were shocked by the incident. 6 innocent individuals were killed: Holly, her 3 children, and 2 teenage friends, Ivy and Brittany. The public accused state police of negligence, ignoring evidence, and failing to monitor dangerous criminals and manage parole for Jesse. Everyone was outraged, questioning why no one recognized how dangerous Jesse was. They believed that if his danger had been known, people would have avoided interacting with him, potentially preventing this tragedy. Even now, this case leaves more questions than answers. Holly's behavior is also unclear. The police are exploring all possibilities, including the idea that she not only knew about Jesse's past but also became an accomplice. Holly's mother firmly denies this theory, insisting that she was a loving, caring mother who could never harm her children. The police are still considering the possibility that Holly was an accomplice, but things spiraled out of control, leading Jesse to kill her and then end his life. However, these claims have yet to be confirmed or refuted. The investigation is ongoing. Jesse McFadden's family has been plagued by legal issues. His younger brother, Cody, has been involved in legal trouble since 2010. Cody was arrested for kidnapping a woman, locking her in a dog cage, assaulting her, and torturing her. Cody's case is still pending in court.